So, you guys want to come up with some kind of plan to get Anne home?
It's gonna be dangerous, perilous even.
Understatement!
This is my escape. I'm running through this world and I'm not looking back. I know I can go where no one's ever gone and I'm not looking back. But how will I know when I get there? And how will I know when to leave? We've all gotta start from somewhere, and it's right there for me. The possibilities are never ending. I see it, and now it's all within my reach. Possibility. I see it now. It's always been inside of me. And now I feel so free. And it's possibility.
It was the 9th morning of June when I decided it was time to look back at my favorite show at all time. I had to start the Amphibia retrospective, of course. I said I would do it. I was going to look back at every episode of the series and review it. And also looking back at the theories people had done in the past, trying to predict its story. And so I started, and quickly realized many days later that the first intro I recorded was awful, and that it needed to be re-recorded. Yes, this is being recorded June the 20th. I'm on episode 7. Yeah, not making really good steady progress, but it's some progress, at least. By the minute you're hearing this, I have at least finished season 1. I am still debating if uploading it by segments or uploading it by the entire thing at once in like a year or so. Well, maybe not a year, definitely not a year. That'd be the peak of laziness. But in a later date, basically. But anyways, Amphibia aired from June 17th to 2019 to 2022 in May, in which it ended in a 3rd season. One of the most acclaimed shows on Disney Channel. On the levels of Gravity Falls, and hell, some people think it's better than Gravity Falls. I included in those people. But is it true? Is this magical world of toads and frogs so fantastic? Of course it is. I've been following it since 2020, but that's not the point. But let's move on and take a look. For the uninitiated, Amphibia's episodes are divided into 2 segments, aka 2 stories thrown into 22 minutes. For this retrospective, I'll be going segment through segment opposed to episode through episode. This may make it more complicated in the editing department, but it will make it better in the commentary department. So yeah, with that out of the way, Enter Beast is a really solid opener. It introduces us to all the characters, Anne's self-centeredness, Sprig's hyperactiveness, Hop's strictness, and Polly's personality, to put it some way. Something I immediately noticed was how different the voice acting was for some of the characters. Like, Hop Up and sound fine, but Sprig and Polly sound radically different. I know they make a joke about this in the future, but I didn't realize it until rewatching the first episode. Which is, I guess, a thing you have to deal with young voice actors. Either way, I think the voice acting is pretty good. It can be a little weak at times, but I'm going to attribute that they don't have a grasp on the characters yet. Other than that, this is a pretty solid opener. I like this line from Toadie.
Obscene!
Best line of the episode. Give this man an Emmy.
Guys, I just had the craziest dream. I was trapped in a world of frog pee. Oh.
Best Fonts is a good episode. It shows us what Anne thinks friendship is and how friendship behave and treat themselves, clearly showing us that her friends from back home aren't as great, and shows how her relationship with Sprig is true friendship, unlike her relationship with her other friends isn't friendship. Which, speaking of those friends, we finally got the name reveals, Sasha and Marcy. It also shows the box for the first time in a scene that isn't the intro. So, yeah, pretty good episode overall. Another thing, this is the most accurate depiction of Los Angeles this show has ever shown. According to what I've heard, of course, but yeah, this dark and gloomy city definitely seems to what Los Angeles is, and not the thing we see in Season 3. That's the only thing about it. It really is different from how Los Angeles is shown from Season 3, but it's definitely more accurate. So yeah, moving on. Best Fonts is a good.
It's gonna be great.
Foreshadowing. Kane Crazy is okay. I did find some of the jokes funny, like the Pen and Hop Hop's ending monologue, where he tries to roast Anne, but other than that, it's not much other than a generic story about a kid breaking something and tries to hide it from the adult, and having to own up for their mistake. But yeah, other than that, it's not much. It also establishes that Anne used to live in a cave. Blood, Sweat, and Tears is another pretty okay episode. Anne's room floods due to a leak, and is forced to choose between staying in the couch and staying in Sprig's room. She obviously chooses Sprig's room, but she and him quickly find out that it's pretty annoying, and that maybe that they aren't such good friends after all. Then in the end, Hoppa tells them they're better friends now because they've been honest with themselves and said all the things that annoy them about each other. Now, again, this is a pretty okay episode, other than establishing the whole brand against the world thing, which, God, trust me when I say that phrase may seem silly now, it will not feel silly by the end of this video. But yeah, another pretty okay episode. It's definitely better than Kane Crazy, but other than that, I don't think it's better than the first two. Hop Luck is another one I like a lot. This one involves Anne trying her best to get the planters to win a food contest, which they constantly lose every year, with the punishment being locked up in a cage and thrown shame nuggets. They go to extreme lengths, but in the end lose everything except the tomato. So yeah, this episode is kinda tradition versus modernity, and how we have to get the best of both, that stuff. But yeah, I generally enjoy the Anne and planter interactions. This is her giving her best foot in becoming a planter, because they've helped her so much. They give her a home, food, and now it's time for her to give them something. So yeah, this is a pretty good one just because of that. And the son of a slug ending always makes me smile.
Son of a slug!
I don't know what. It's one of the most memorable moments of Season 1, in my opinion. Stakeout is definitely one of the more memorable episodes of Season 1, without containing any lore, that is. It puts two characters, Anne and Hop Hop, who at this point have been at odds with each other at everything, and puts them to work together in order to catch a fake thief that Sprig made up in order for them to get along, since he believes that them fighting will destroy the family. Now, first off, I have to say that they repeated a joke that they did with Hop Hop but with Sprig. The absolutely thing. They did that in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I don't know if they realized that or if the episodes were really very far apart in time, but I don't know, it just kinda felt weird to me how they would reuse a joke. But other than that, this episode is pretty good. I definitely enjoyed a lot in the segment where they get drugged with their drinks. It just becomes absurd anime at that point. The power-up joke was definitely my favorite of this episode.
Pew, pew. It must be immune to magic!
Quick, grab those power-ups! Power-ups? Doesn't this house feel empty to you?
Not especially.
The domino effect is definitely one of the most remembered episodes from season 1, but I think that's because of the monster design and the fact that Domino 2 came back in season 3. But other than that, I don't know why I remember it so much. This episode is kinda mid-engineer. It has some funny moments, like the hop and the dirty dishes moment, but other than that, no, it's kinda mid. My favorite part is the hop pop jokes. That's the only part I laughed at. The others were kinda just generic. I could have been watching anything else. I do like the thing Sprig does for Anne at the end, but other than that, you can kinda skip this one on a rewatch. Taking Charge is one of my favorite episodes from season 1, generally because of the humor. It's very funny. The plot is pretty simple in my opinion, and introduces the Planter family to Suspicion Island, the generic CW show. And after a night, Anne discovers that someone binged all the season and drained her battery life, and now has no way to remember her memories from back home. So the Planter family go on a trip to charge Anne's phone with a Joltic. That's the only thing I can think of. Of course, it's revealed to be Hop Up at the end. You know from the beginning he did it. And yeah, I think you're supposed to. I don't think they actually thought you wouldn't figure out it was Hop Pop. I don't think the writers thought that. The mystery aspect definitely gives for the humor. The Planters all being super suspicious of each other and just being kinda casual. Pretty good episode all in all.
Are there pictures?
There are diagrams.
No!
Fun fact. This episode references Grand Theft Auto in the title. NANI? Okay, obvious comparisons aside, do you know that in Spanish, this episode's title actually references Fast and Furious? The title in Spanish actually reads Fast and Curious. What a creative episode title, am I right? Either way, this episode involves Anne stealing Bessie. And that's about it, but honestly, I don't have much to say about it. It's a simple plot. The only thing that results is the first Sonic the Hedgehog reference. Prepare to see those pop up in season 2 especially. And of course, the infamous line,
I don't feel safe.
yeah, honestly, I don't feel safe after that ending. That's ahead of us. Breakout Star is a bit of a weird episode for me. Like, it's really funny, the joke's honestly really good, but it's also a really typical story. Character becomes famous because of X reason, gets to their head, forgets about their friends, character loses the thing that makes them famous, now they ask help for their friends. It's pretty generic story, but I think the characters definitely push it. A little bit. The humor definitely pushes it further, and even it can be a bit random. Like, there's a moment where Hop Up does a Lord of the Rings reference, and it's kind of weird and out of place. But other than that, I think it's a pretty funny episode.
Get out there and sell like your lives depend on it. Because they do. We really need this.
Sprig vs. Hop Pop. I guess they were running out of creative titles at this point. But in all honesty, the Sprig vs. Hop Pop is an okay episode. It's not amazing, it's not great, it's just okay. It's not funny, but it's not unfunny. It's not overbearing, it's just okay. Again, it's a kind of generic plot. Sprig wants Hop Pop to listen to their suggestions, but Hop Pop won't budge. So Sprig challenges him to a duel to assume control of the farm, and this is the most generic sitcom-y plot ever, honestly. It's not a bad episode, but the plot is just generic. You know, Hop Up has to learn to listen to people, and Sprig has to understand that running a farm isn't as easy, and that listening to people isn't always a good thing, at least not blindly. But it just kinda mid. You never see Hop Pop's realization, it's not there. I understand you can't do these things with 10-minute segments, but then again, Hop Pop literally says,
Jeremy taught me that.
what did he teach you? How did he teach you? Moving on. Girl time. More like generic time. This episode is the most generic one of the season yet. Hell, I'd say it's the worst of the season up until now. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like I'd have been watching any other cartoon or sitcom in the world, and I'd have a similar enjoyment of it. The only thing made here is Anne and Polly's bond gets more stronger. Other than that, it really does nothing. The only part I enjoyed was the last part. It was just kind of sweet. I don't know. Find it kind of enjoyable. But other than that, it just introduces Felicia and the sheriff.
Our work here is done.
He doesn't come back until season 3. Maybe I should sting that last joke to generic season, because I don't think this episode is good. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely something I'm noticing with these early episodes. They're not boring, but they're very simple and generic. They can be saved by the jokes, definitely, but sometimes they can't, which is the case with this episode. It introduces Ivy, Sprig's friend from infancy. Wait, didn't he establish that he didn't have any friends, and that Anne was his first friend? Well, then again, Bessie was different in the pilot. I finally remembered to mention this in this episode, by the way. I forgot it twice. I forgot to mention it in the pilot recording, which I'll probably have to re-record, honestly. It was kind of bad. And I'll probably forget it then, so I'm putting it in now. But another thing I forgot to tell is I remembered in the Bessie episode I was supposed to say it, but I forgot again. And I mentioned it here, where it has nothing to do with anything. What a concept. And this isn't the last different thing from the first episode. This one extended an entire season, but we'll get to that. Moving on with the episode, I think it's okay. Again, it's a generic plot where, Anne tries to convince Sprig that he's in love with Ivy. Sprig convinces himself that he may not get the opportunity again, realizes that he doesn't really like Ivy, fight a bird with her, watches some fireflies, and realizes he is in love with her. It's really weird, man. I don't know. This episode is just has me kind of feeling nothing, but I was never bored, but it's weird. Let's leave it at that. Other than that, nothing really to commentate about this episode.
The love doves are sneaking off into the woods. You know what that means.
Wait, what?
You know what that means.
Re-roll that clip for a second.
The love doves are sneaking off into the woods. You know what that means.
How old is Sprig? Okay, forget everything I've said about this being the generic part of the season. This episode's my favorite so far. Anne vs. Nature is great. It's really good. It puts Anne in a position where she feels excluded from the Planter family, which she has spent multiple days building bonds with, and basically feels part of it at this point. But they go on a camping trip that they don't invite her to, and she feels left out and sad, so she goes with them in order to be with them, to be happy and have fun. But she ends up torturing herself and lies to them that this isn't enough stream camping. It also introduces Soggy Joe, honestly one of the more funny characters. And they go into this very extreme with is bad for everybody, and Anne reveals everything. And they end everything with a hug. This episode is good, funny, and lore important too, since Anne finally reveals the music box to the planters. Have I mentioned the music box? I genuinely don't remember if I mentioned the music box. The way she got here. And, well, she finally reveals it to them, and they see nothing. Yeah, they say nothing. Except Pop. He knows about it.
NANI?!
Yeah, this was like the Stan machine reveal, basically. It definitely puts Pop-Up in a position where he knows more than he lets on. But not much of that, honestly. But yeah, this is the best episode in the season so far.
A frog can really hear themselves think out here. Did you leave the stove on? The front door unlocked? Will you die alone? Well, that was a mistake.
Contagy Ann. Weird title, but good episode in general. In this episode, Ann lies to get a day off of work. Because of this, the plants work in the raid and get sick with a disease that they think will kill them. It turns out it wasn't a disease, it was a mushroom that made them turn red, which is the same symptom as the deadly disease. What are the chances? But either way, this is a good episode. It definitely shows how far Ann is willing to go for her found frog family and the bond they build in the last episodes. Either way, I do think this episode contradicts a little bit the last one. I feel like this one should have gone first. Because, in that episode, Ann said she'd go wherever they'd go, even if she doesn't like it. And here, she actively does the opposite. But either way, it's still a pretty good episode. You'll enjoy it. Family Shrub is a good episode. Yep, ironically, in an episode focused on the planter family tree, I have nothing to say. Especially with how important the planters are. Especially their ancestry. It's kind of weird it wasn't included here, but hey, at least it was okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to say about this one.
What do you say, Loggle? Up for another adventure? Absolutely!
Lithpad Thigh. It establishes that Ann has parents, that she is from Thailand. I had to re-record this segment because I confused the title. I thought it was Thigh View, but that's in season 3, I think. That's the most interesting thing. It's okay. I enjoyed the bones joke, but other than that, yeah, nothing to commentate. This is the first time I've had this happen. I knew it would happen in season 1, but I didn't think it would be with Thai Feud of all episodes. Moving on.
You want me to off Toady? I'll do it. You know I will.
If Polly would have gone through with that, yeah, the sequence of events of season 2 would have been radically different. But this episode is okay. Generic, again, like most of season 1, but pretty funny. I laughed at the I'll take 10 joke, obviously a reference to the Patrick meme. But yeah, other than funny, I don't know what else to say about this episode. It established Hop Hop as unemployed, which I think comes back in a future episode, but I don't really remember. Either way, moving on. Toad Tax is definitely one of the favorites and best from season 1, and I totally understand why. You should watch it yourself. I'm gonna refrain from spoiling too much, but basically, Anne wants to earn the respect of the town, which, even over a month of her staying there, constantly disrespect her. So, when the Toads from Toad Tower arrive, the most fierce warriors of the valley, she decides to hang out with them to gain the town's respect. And obviously, yeah, this thing has its consequences. The only thing I'm going to say more about this is this establishes kind of the hierarchy of Amphibia, which will become a reoccurring theme later on, and the first foreshadowing of Anne losing an arm. That never happened. But, well, then again, the words Toad and arm were involved in one scene, but I'll refrain from spoiling it. And yeah, other than that, this is, I think, the first episode that happened simultaneously with another. The next segment, actually. The introduction of a new character, Sasha Waybright. I forgot to mention this in the first segment, but this is the first time an intro was cut from an episode of Amphibia. Boy, would that get traumatizing later on, but that's not the theme today. This episode does a lot. I don't know where to begin. You watch it first and you think it only introduces 2 things, but no, it introduces a lot. It introduces grime, Sasha, Percy, Braddock, and the Herons. Key characters and monsters in the story of Amphibia. That's not a joke. They are very important for character arcs, future events, and even past events. So I'm just going to give you the brief down. This is a really good episode, so I'm going to refrain from spoiling much. So yeah. Sasha is established as the manipulator. All the hints of her toxicity before are made reality now. Like, everything you thought she was, yeah, she's worse than that. She is a very bad person in Season 1. I am surprised if anybody liked her in this season. But on the voice department, I think Anna Kendrick does a decent job. Again, it seems like she doesn't have a grip on the character yet. She sounds radically different from later seasons. But this also introduces Grime. This introduces him as ruthless, mean, and power-hungry, and man, this is very, very different from the more mentor or Grime that we see in later seasons. But yeah, Prison Break is definitely a good. I don't think it's amazing, but it's definitely good. Yeah, okay, moving forward, be prepared, y'all. I'm not going to be talking a lot about the rest of Season 1. This is going to be filler city until episode 20. That's not an exaggeration. Other than a few things here and there isn't going to be much to talk about. Grubhub is funny. It's the typical older person wants to tell younger person to do something that they don't like but will benefit the family name. It's funny, but yeah. Other than the ending and that it comes back in Season 3, yeah, nothing. It's an okay episode, just have not much to say.
Hop Hop, what are you doing hiding in the bushes?
I'm not quite sure myself, Anne.
Hop Pop and Lock is a pretty funny episode. I enjoyed the beginning segment when they're in an alley trying to sell vegetables illegally, and the part where Hop Pop expresses himself through dance. They're pretty funny. But other than that, this episode only really introduced Sylvia. So yeah, pretty good. Definitely recommend checking out. Civil Wart. I don't get it. Civil Wart, in my opinion, is a really entertaining episode that is sold as a, parody of ship culture and all that. But you can't fool me. This was obviously made for the fans of Star vs. Subversive of Evil to learn their lesson and understand that people can ship whatever they want as long as it's fictional. Remember, as long as it's fictional. And they don't have to insult and, threaten each other over ships. Then they looked at the Owl House fandom and noticed that, yes, they failed at that. Moving on. Hot Popular is a pretty good episode. I'd say one of the better non-lore important ones. Then again, they are so limited in Season 1, but that's not important, is it? But moving on, yeah. Hop Popular continues on the plot of Hop Pop now being jobless due to losing the stand. So he decides to run for mayor. I don't know how day-to-day salesman is qualified to run for mayor in Wartwood, but sure. It's a pretty funny episode all in all. Not to mention it includes one of the lines that most people use in order to describe amphibia theories. With the whole frogs, toads, newts, hierarchy, and classism thing. It's a good. Definitely would watch again. It's really funny. Fun fact about this episode, this was probably the hardest one to react to because they were building stuff above me and had to poop. So I had to poop with the door open to watch the episode. I have wireless headphones, that's how I could do it. Yeah. Interesting fact about this recording. Another thing is that the episode wasn't loading, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do it later. And then I checked, and I had closed everything to record, and it worked. So, yeah, fun fact. This was probably the most complicated episode to record. What a concept. At least it was a good one. Croaking punishment is entertaining. Okay, no, but I do want to talk about this now that, it kind of happened for the first time. I really have nothing to say about this episode other than that. It has some funny moments, but other than that, it's just a generic good cop, bad cop story where the bad cop becomes too bad, It's kinda, it's entertaining, but it's kinda mid, That's how I define most of the episodes in Season 1. It's entertaining, but it's really nothing to write home about. Other than a few jokes here and there, yeah, pretty generic stuff. Also, I have never eaten licorice in my life, so yeah, I have nothing to say for this episode, really. But that's kind of how Season 1 operates. It's just filler that builds up the bond between these characters. And it has some good moments. There's like 3 episodes, not counting the first, which are important to the plot. But I can take that, Season 1 is entertaining, even on a rewatch. There's just not much to talk about. Trip to the Archive is a good episode. Wow, what original and great commentary that wasn't heard before, including in this very video. But other than that, it's established that the next episode's happening over the course of at least a week, so yeah. Remembering those episodes, I kind of find it hard to believe, but sure. Either way, it's a fun episode. Definitely recommend it. It kind of sets up how crazy Season 2 is, so yeah. Be prepared for that when we get there.
So what do we do?
Well, we wait for someone to visit the archives.
Oh, okay. Well, when was the last time someone came down here?
Well, I checked the logs and it says 3 years ago.
Snow Day features the first outro switch. Like most things in this series, that would get very traumatizing going forward. But moving on, Snow Day's a pretty entertaining episode. But y'all kinda know my stance on Amphibia Snow / Christmas episodes. None of them. Not one of them. There are 3 of them. None of them actually aired in December. Snow Day, I believe, aired in June, July. The Second Temple aired, I believe, in April, May. Literally, Froggy Little Christmas, literally an episode with the Christmas on the title, aired in November. It's so funny yet so irritating for me for no reason. I need help. Either way, good episode. Craig and Kroger is kind of boring. I actually kind of wanted to skip it because of it. If you look at Amphibia reviews, this is usually one of the lower ones in Season 1, and I kind of agree. Kind of simple. I kind of was on my phone through most of it, but I didn't miss anything of importance. It's just Sprague trying to get someone to like him. The fight scene at the end was entertaining, though, I will say that. Moving on.
That's gonna be hard to forget.
Big City Greens reference. Other than that, none of the end is pretty good. That's it, that's a review. It's entertaining. Wally and Dan is a good episode. The dynamic is pretty good and entertaining. Guys, I think he's running out of things to say. No, you think? I ran out of things to say by episode 11. Jesus. No, seriously. It's getting really hard to say new things. I don't know how people do this for Family Guy and The Simpsons, but kudos to them. They are more creative than me. Though this episode is pretty good, and I recommend check it out. It also introduces the Moss Man, a factor that, trust me, will become important once we reach Season 3 and 1 episode in Season 2, but trust me, it will be very important. Family fishing trip. Guess the creative department was running low on titles. But this is a pretty solid episode. It's funny, it's entertaining, and we even get to see some things we didn't get to see before, like Spring his polywog phase, and we even get to hear Anne spawn for the first time. Be reminded of this. This will come back in Season 3. Bizarre. That place must be filled with references and muscular 17-year-olds. Either way, it's a good episode, and a very important one of the series at that. It introduces Valeriana, a character that will be key in the Temples arc. I call it the Temples arc. And the music box getting buried under the planter's backyard. A plotline that led to the show's most controversial and divisive episode. One that, my opinion, I think is definitely the unpopular one, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Other than that, it's a good episode. Also, I thought it was way earlier. I thought this episode came around 12 or 14. It's not that off, it's only like 2 or 4. This episode 16. I thought it came way earlier. I did not remember this coming in the last 4 episodes. Also, I reacted to the next one before. I forgot which one it was. I reacted to Cursed before this one on accident. Either way, that's it. So in this episode, Benson accidentally eats the sandwich of death the incorrect way, which causes him to...
Stop! No! Just stop it!
Okay, no, but seriously, Anne just straight up looks like Mordecai. He looks like a character straight off a regular show. But Cursed is okay. It has some pretty cool animation at times, but it's okay. Other than that, it's a pretty generic episode. Though Barry reminds me of this one Radical Soda video.
Team Plasma is inside. I'm totally a rough and tough investigator now. Okay, I'm going in! Whee!
Let me think. Never!
That's about it. He reminds me of that time Radical Soda did that voice. Pretty good episode still. Does anyone get weird Star versus the Forces of Evil nostalgia from this episode? From Season 2 most specifically. Because I do. Like, way too much. Like, more than necessary. Either way, Fiddle Me This is a good episode. I have no idea why they launched the lizards, but it's an entertaining one. A good time, definitely.
I feel like a living god!
They had that planned since Season 1? Guess we just caught on slowly. Either way, this is a good episode. It introduces Chuck, and for some reason he says sentences without the word tulip in them. I guess they hadn't thought of the joke yet, but sure. Still a good one. I'm still mind blown that there was still foreshadowing as early as Season 1 about the ending of Amphibia. Incredible. Combat Camp is a good episode, but I kinda resent it because it gave Anne a glowing blue sword that she never uses it until the last episodes. I'm not kidding. She receives this sword in episode, I think we're in episode 18. And she doesn't use it until, I'd say, episode 18 and 17 of Season 3. She never uses it again. She uses it in the Season 2 intro, but never actually pulls it out in Season 2. What was this? A retcon to make it easier to animate? I don't know, man. Either the episode's fine. I just kind of find it weird that she never used it until the end. And it wasn't special, it was just another sword. She uses the Reunion sword, which is objectively in worse condition. She didn't use this sword in Reunion because she didn't have it. She stole one from a toad. But why not use it in the rest of Season 2? It looked in better condition than the sword she actually used. Either way, moving on. I think this is the first violent scene in all Amphibia. Well, at least it wasn't a child this time. Either way, in this episode, Hop Up drugs his children. It's funny. Either way, other than that, This is the first time we see the moon glow a different color that isn't red, hinting at the connection between the moon and the gems, which I'm still not sure myself of. You'll see when we get to the season 3 finale, aka like next year. No way I'm finishing this review this summer. I don't know how to begin with Anne of the Year. Basically, in this episode, Anne gets elected Frog of the Year. Simple enough, right? Basically, she gets tasked with organizing a party for the townsfolk, and she basically forces them into things they don't want to do, with the ending realization that maybe she is selfish. But the townfolks reconfort her, that they didn't choose her because she's perfectly selfless and an angel of heaven. They chose her because she's changed over time into a better person. And yeah, this basically episode is to demonstrate that all those filler episodes weren't for nothing. They're important to see how the bond of these characters gets built. How Anne goes from town monster to town hero. And of course, finally, redeeming Mayor Toadstool from being the generic selfish mayor to, you know, kind of a normal mayor. Still greedy, but, you know. But let's be real, you don't really want to talk to me about the episode. You want to talk to me about the ending scene, where Sasha and Dan finally reunite after who knows how many months. And of course, Sasha with her brings the toads from Toad Tower. Boy, I don't know how I even did this. I have no idea how to do Reunion, man. That's a long episode. I don't know how I'm going to do Reunion, but screw it. Here we go. Reunion, season 1 finale. Kinda out of nowhere for me, though. Dude, I can't talk about this episode. Reunion is too important. It changes a lot of things in the status quo. It changes a lot of things in character-wise. It introduces a bunch of themes that some come back, some others don't, and it's too confusing. I've tried recording this part of the retrospective for like 10 minutes, and I still don't know what to do. I still don't have a clear plan. I'm going to go through parts in this episode because I think it's the best way, and it's probably how I'll do things in the important episodes of season 2. And trust me, there will be a lot of those, man. There will be a lot of those. God, this is gonna be hard. Either way, let's begin. Reunion. Oh my god, where should I begin? Okay, let's try and summarize the events of Reunion. The episode starts up with a flashback that reveals, yes, Sasha's the biggest piece of shit in the universe. I don't know how people liked her in season 1. Don't get me wrong, she is my favorite, but I never liked her in season 1. How can you like this character in season 1? I understand season 2 and 3, but I cannot understand why people liked her in season 1. I'm not saying you can't, I'm saying I don't understand. Either way, moving on to the present day, yep. Sasha's introduced the planters, the frogs, and yep, she is immediately disgusted by them because she is a horrible person at this point in the series. Either way, moving on, the Toads invite them to a very obvious trap in Toad Tower. Yeah, I'm surprised Sprig was the only one to catch on to this. We also get revealed that the Toads are in fact submitted to a military life. Something that we already suspected from, you know, Toad Tax and that. Well, suspected this episode was aired like, what, a week after Toad Tax? I'm going to talk about the bomb format later. You'll see. Either way, surprise, it was actually a trap. Sasha doesn't really care for the lives of the frogs, but Anne kinda does, and that kinda sets up the conflict of the episode. Either way, Anne tries to free the frogs, and yep, they get captured, but Wally steps up some boom shrooms. That will come in later. Either way, we get to the point, and Anne finally stands up to Sasha, because she won't let her hurt her friends that took her in, gave her shelter, and gave her food. Nah, girl, that ain't gonna fly. Either way, big anime battle and Roxas reference. There are a lot of these Roxas references with Sasha. Either way, moving on. Anne wins and leaves Sasha with a scar, and obviously Grime doesn't keep his word because let's be real, Grime was just a villain at this point in season 1. he wasn't the great character he was in the later seasons. And yeah, almost kills Hop Pop. Either way, Wally's boom shrooms go off, and kaboom. The frogs and toads mostly escape, while Sasha falls into the abyss and tries to save her. And when Sasha sees that the planters truly care about her more than she could ever care about Anne, she lets go. She realizes she's just a burden on Anne, and that she is a horrible friend, and that she, in her own words, is better off without her. The episode closes in, revealing that the planters and Anne will go out of the valley to find Marcy, find Sasha, and the way to get Anne home. And they leave us with the parting words, end of part 1. The credits show a bunch of flashbacks that we saw this season. God fucking damn it, that was so much and I haven't even begun. When people look back to Reunion, they usually think the perfect season finale. And I agree. It solves a lot of the plot points that we see in the season, while also leaving some loose and introducing some new. It leaves you hanging. Literally hanging and wanting more. And yeah, I think it's time we talk about the characters now. Anne's development fully shows here and is finally concluded by her standing up to Sasha. She will not have her toxic ways of manipulation, of basically torturing her emotionally and make her use her as a puppet. She won't have it anymore, and yeah. But she's also still Sasha's friend, because she still cares about her, in a way. I don't know why, but still. And Sasha herself doesn't change. Don't get this final thing wrong. She doesn't change. At all. At all. She does not change. She knows she was a bad friend, but she doesn't change. She's filled with guilt, but she kind of hides it over the fact she wants control over everything, and therefore, she can't be wrong. She's Sasha, the greatest, the one who gets all the praise and control. She can't be wrong. But deep down, she kind of has to realize that Anne is right. She was a bad friend, and yeah, their relationship will never be the same. Other than that, yeah, Spran Against the World wins. Fuck you, shippers! Okay, kind of a mood breaker. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Either way, this is the perfect ending to Season 1. There was no other way to show it. And yeah, it definitely shows. Other than that, I don't know what to say. It's a great ending. The one complaint I do have is the song chosen for when Sasha falls. I know Lean On Me is kind of a classic, and I'm not saying it's a bad song. I'm just saying this one sounds better. Either way, this was a great ending to a great season. Well, maybe not great, but definitely a good one. Now moving on, we're going to go through the news and information between Season 1 and Season 2. Looking at theories, news, and shorts that we got for the series between Seasons 1 and 2. Okay, so Amphibia had like a lot of theories made about it. I'm not surprised. It's a story-driven cartoon by Disney, created by one of the people who worked on Gravity Falls. One of its most important episodes, actually, Weird Mageddon Part 2. I'm not certain about that, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it also came out with the heels of Star Versus, which came out a month prior after the ending of said show. Wait, Star Versus ended in 2019? And we knew of Amphibia since 2018. I thought Star Versus ended in 2018, and then they announced Amphibia, and then it aired in 2019. I have a weird perception of time. Also, that doesn't give me much hope for any future story-driven cartoons in the, Disney Channel. And, the treatment of the Owl House and Amphibia. We'll get to that minimally, but we'll get to that. But yeah, we have Amphibia a year prior to Star's End, and we got it a month after Star ended. And currently, there is no announcement of any story-driven cartoon, and the Owl House has like 3 episodes left, and it will end between the end of this year and next year, and we still got nothing. Great. It's a good day and age to be a lore cartoon enthusiast. Either way, there are too many theories to look at. Like, most of them are from the box. Marcy. What about Marcy breaking a leg? I don't know about that one. I mean, that seems oddly specific. And, let's just go through them now, so I don't have to go through them later. First theory, Grime is the intro monster. Okay, so you probably know this if you're an Amphibia fan, but in every intro, literally including the cut intros, there is a mural behind the logo. You can barely see it and barely make it out, but there is. It's the 3 girls, Sasha, Ann, and Marcy, fighting a toad. And granted, Grime kind of seemed perfect. He was clearly a villain, he had a glass eye, and well, he just seemed the type of guy to take the power of the gems and become ruler of the world. He just seemed that type of guy. It was perfect for the role. That obviously didn't become true, and Grime became a good guy, and he's a lovable fall, and I love him. I love him. I'm glad he didn't die. Thank you. Theory number 2, Marcy, in every sense of the way. Okay, so in season 1, believe it or not, Marcy was a whole mystery. Like, seriously, we did not even know her personality. People were thinking she was just Sasha 2.0, maybe even worse, but no, she wasn't. But most of the theories was where she was. Was she practicing magic? Was she maybe studying in Utopia University? Maybe she broke a leg and the newts helped her. That last one is oddly specific. I doubt it will happen. Or the one I believed at the time. At the time. What am I talking about? We'll get into that. Was that Marcy was in the wilderness, surviving, and that eventually she stumbled upon Utopia and started stealing around her. That was the one I was buying to. Yeah, I was dead wrong on that. I hadn't made a video about it yet because I hadn't started making content yet, but maybe it's a good thing because that didn't happen. Moving on. Theory number 3, the girls are connected to the stones. Okay, so the only thing I have to say about this theory nowadays, it's duh. But back in the day, I actually doubted it, It could have just been an animation, There were pretty big animation errors later on in big episodes of the series, but, nope, this one wasn't an animation error. We obviously didn't know that the gems had such big powers at the time, like we never expected literal God. But, yeah, we were kind of right about this one, though it was kind of served on a silver platter. A transparent silver platter. I know that doesn't exist, but, it's an analogy. Theory number 4, the planter family is connected somehow to the box. This one kinda became canon, but not the way we believed it in Season 1. In Season 1, we thought a planter family ancestor, or a random frog, used the music box in order to obtain power and died from it. Hence why there's a skull in Hop Pop's book, and there's a bunch of dangerous and beware letters of the Calamity Box, which was name dropped, by the way. Cool! Either way, this was a pretty decent theory at the time. It would explain why Hop Pop buried the music box and was so wary about it. And it's kinda true, but not in the way we thought it was. There was a planter that used it and sorta used its power, but they didn't die. It was more just a warning to hide it or destroy it, so, a certain someone wouldn't get it into their hands. Well, someone's, but we'll get to that later. Amphibia Season 1 aired on a bomb format, aka episodes aired a day after the other. This probably hurt it in more ways than one, but I think it definitely hurt it the worst in relevancy and hiatus. 1. It was aired in May on a bomb format. Ratings aren't going to be as hot on TV because most people who watch on Disney Channel are children. So yeah, they're in school or their parents don't let them watch TV on the weekdays. Yes, apparently parents do that. Either way, another thing is the extra long hiatus. Amphibia Season 1 is legendary for having a year-long hiatus, generally because of the bomb format. Episodes were aired right one after the other, and we had to wait longer. If it would have been divided into weekly episodes, Amphibia would have probably aired until August and not ended in June or something. But yeah, the bomb format definitely hurt it a lot. We also got shorts in the form of Teen Girl in the Frog World and Chibi Tales. Amphibia also got added to Disney Plus. And yeah, these are all pretty generic things that most shows get, but now we get into the news about Season 2. So there was a lot of news about Amphibia Season 2, but I'm going to stick to 4 main pieces of information that produced the most hype. The first one was an interview with the series creator Matt Brawley, which revealed that Season 2 would have 4 20-minute specials. To put it into perspective, the only other 20-minute special of the series up to that point was Reunion, and we all know how that ended. It also revealed that one of these was a Halloween special, which are always cool to see. I always like seeing festivity episodes. I don't know about you guys, but I like them. We also got posters. 2 I remember concretely. The first one was the San Diego Comic-Con poster. Remember when that was a thing? Either way, this one featured Anne with the frogs in the Calamity Box, and Marcy with a hood and a cape with her back towards us and facing what seemed to be Newtopia City, which confirmed that yes, Marcy was with the Newts as all the theories predicted. Let's be real. Did anyone doubt it? Did anyone doubt that for a second? Meh. Either way, the second poster is a lot more revealing and features a lot more. This one features Anne, Sprig, and the rest of the planters, Sasha, and the feast reveal of Marcy. Yeah, okay, they revealed it in the poster. Okay. It also features a lot of new characters, which are the Newts, Lady Olivia, General Yunan, and of course, King Andreas. The definitely villain, not villain, that definitely won't betray the gang. Yeah, we'll get into that. The final piece of information revealed in Season 2 was, of course, the trailer. And, well, instead of talking about it, because I'm going to talk about Season 2, I'm going to talk about how this trailer got me hooked on Amphibia. I am not kidding. I did not show any interest in Amphibia before this trailer, and it was because of only one thing. The song. The goddamn song was so good. And this is another thing that supports my claiming that the best time to watch a show is when it's airing. Because you miss the stuff like this. Stuff like the trailers. This song is the best the series has ever produced. Yes, better than No Big Deal, and it's never used. Never. And I believe it's the best. And yeah, it got me hooked on Amphibia, and I have kinda nostalgia for this trailer. And maybe I'm being a bit biased here, but I think it's Amphibia's best trailer. By far. No debate for me. Either way, let's move on to Season 2. But before that, I forgot to mention something. The beta designs. Yep, Polly, Hop Pop, and Sprig's beta designs were all revealed between seasons 1 and 2. I forgot to mention that in the last video because I have a memory of a fish. Either way, let's get into them. Sprig's was definitely the most variating, you know, the red coat, the wooden sword and shield. What else? There was a green one, there was one very similar to the final one. Either way, I think those all look fine, but I kind of prefer the final design. Out of the ones here, I definitely prefer the blue one. It looks better in my opinion. Another one who got redesigned was Hop Pop. He used to have glasses in one variation, and I'm pretty sure all of them had canes. I think they got rid of the cane because it definitely restricted his mobility, and you know, that's not good in a series where one of its main things is adventure and, you know, battles. But we haven't gotten into those yet, so I probably shouldn't have talked about those. But yeah, Anne got done tremendously dirty in the final design. They removed her sweater. And I'm a big sweater fan. You can't just remove a character's sweater. I'm such a big sweater fan that I live in Florida and I use a sweater. And this is verifiable. I'm not going to bring testimony, but it is verifiable. But yeah, I would have definitely preferred if Anne kept the sweater. Oh yeah, and Polly. Polly is exactly the same. Yeah, I don't know why I thought it would be something. Either way, let's actually move on to season 2. Attempt recording number 100 of getting back into the groove. Let's go. Handy Ann. I love it. I watched it on repeat for a week when it came out back in summer of 2020. That's how obsessed I was with its series. And obsession, I think, is an understatement at this point. The reason why I don't own a Hop Pop body pillow is a mystery. But that's besides the point. Handy Ann is a good episode. I think it does a good job reintroducing us to the characters and their quirks, and of course establishing how much they care for each other. Not to mention the plot points. Reintroducing past plot points like Sasha and the music box, and introducing new plot points like, you know, Newtopia. And oh yeah, Anne's powers got confirmed in this episode. Yeah, it was a theory back then. Remember when the girl's powers were only a theory? Those were the times before season 2, God. Really nostalgic, to be honest. But either way, I think the episode is pretty good. It establishes how much Anne cares for the planners and how much she's grateful for all they've done for her. And the ending is pretty sweet. Either way, we part to Newtopia and the start of season 2. This took 100 attempts to record, and I'm finally good with this one. I don't want to keep talking and screwing it up. Let's moving on.
As a matter of fact, I do.
That was weird.
Yeah, it didn't feel right.
For the Road is an episode I love, but I struggle talking about since it's really simple. Like, yeah, it introduces the Fropo plot line, but what is it other than that? Sprig trying to do stuff, Hop Pop preventing him to do stuff for, 10 minutes? It's fun, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, just not much to say. Though it does show how wild Amphibia can get outside the valley. I think that's a good thing. Oh yeah, bunch of Breath of the Wild inspiration. Definitely, like, man, you can tell. Either way, moving on. The Ballad of Hopadiah Planner is really funny. I'd say the funniest episode so far. It's great. The jokes land really well. And I think this is a really good display of Amphibia's humor. The close-up, detailed faces, and you know, the kinda sadist humor sometimes. To the lesser degree in this part of the season, we haven't reached that part yet, but trust me, there will be a point where the sick sense of humor of this show is gonna get to you. Trust me. It's gonna be a point where if you don't laugh, you'll cry. But other than that, yeah, it's a pretty good episode. The only other interesting thing is that I thought this was the theater episode where Max Middleman starred, but yeah, no, we'll get to that much later. Hunter is okay. It's an episode I remember a lot, but I think it's generally because of the mishype for this episode. Everybody was so sure this was going to be our first introduction to magic in Amphibia, generally because of the scene where Anne uses a blue arrow, but that was more an imagination sequence and just foreshadowing, I guess. But yeah, definitely fooled the fandom for a while there. Other than that, I think this episode is pretty good. The monster design is especially amazing. I love the Scorpileo's design. I think the episode really shines with Hallucination Sprig. He is really funny. And I love his song. The only other thing is that Anne just casually eats dirt in this episode. Really weird. Other than that, there's nothing really to comment on. Yeah, okay, let's just move on from that. Jokes Up Polly is a good episode. Generally because of Speedy Joe. He always cracks me up. One of my favorite side characters. But other than that, it's pretty okay. I do have to say one thing this episode does right is that Polly doesn't get annoying to the point where it annoys the viewer himself. This is something a future episode will do wrong, and I'll be sure to call it out. But this episode itself, pretty good. A Caravan Named Desire is a good episode. In it, the gang meet a town-to-town theater, which Hop Hop joins due to his dream of becoming an actor. But the town-to-town theater ends up being a scam which just rob people's banks while they watch their shows. I think the episode is overall pretty funny, and shows how sometimes Hop Hop's desires can get in the place of his morals. But yeah, I think it's still pretty good. Other than that, this episode stars Max Middleman. Those who don't know who Max Middleman is, he's the voice of Arataki Ito, the best character to ever come out against an Impact, and my main. Like, of course this episode has to be great. He's in it! But other than that, I'm recording this the day before the Desert Area and Zumaru comes out. And funny enough, this episode features a desert. Yeah, kind of a coincidence. Quarler's Pass. Remember this place? It'll come back in the future. You know what I've realized lately? Most of these episodes have like 30-second songs for some reason. I didn't mention it in Caravan Named Desire, but it had one in the middle of it. I mentioned the one in Ann Hunter, and now there's this one. Pretty odd. Either way, it's a good episode. It's our first introduction to the Olms, which, remember them, they'll be important later, and establishes we're halfway to Utopia. It also has that famous clip.
That's great, Sprig. Anyway, we were just getting into the nitty-gritty. Now that you guys are back, we can talk about Anne's boyfriend again.
I forgot to mention that when Sprig accidentally stepped on Polly's tail, she instantly insulted him, and like in 30 seconds we're back in I will kill you and hit you mode after being completely fine with each other throughout the entirety of the episode. Yeah. Toadcatcher. This episode definitely solidified Grime as one of my favorites. I mean, come on, he's basically Thor in Endgame, but funnier. And also a lot shorter lived. Seriously, I did not like that he was fat in the final battle. Just my opinion. Either way, yeah, this episode is pretty good. It also helps give Sasha some likability and relatability that she desperately needed if she was going to be redeemed. Seriously, that mean girl stereotype was not going to stick if she was supposedly going to be redeemed by the end of the series. But either way, in this episode, they are hunted by General Yunnan, Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of Ragnar the Wretched, the youngest to ever become general in the great Utopian army. I actually remembered that before the episode started. Yeah, she says it like 4 times in this episode, and trust me, it may get old for you, but it sure doesn't for me. Either way, this also establishes Grimes and Sasha's main goal in the future. Take over the world! A bit generic, but I guess it fits. Either way, Toadcatcher is a good. And hey, I made an entire review of Toadcatcher without mentioning JoJo. Oh, fuck. Storm and Sensitivity is pretty good. Wally's always a character I enjoy watching, and getting to meet his family is interesting. Other than that, where is my lore and backstory on the Peacock Man? Where is it, Matt? Wax Museum is okay. This is probably a lot of people's favorites because it's a Gravity Falls crossover. 4 years after Gravity Falls ended. But yeah, it's okay in my opinion. It has some funny segments and it's pretty entertaining, but it ultimately doesn't serve anything. Even the Skipman plot doesn't lead to much. But either way, yeah. It's pretty okay. The reason I'm keeping this segment short is because 1, this episode is really just filler and filled with Gravity Falls references. And the next one is very important. Like, really, I'm probably going to be talking about it for at least a minute. Marcy at the Gates is amazing. I can't explain why it's amazing, because it won't do it justice. Just go watch it and be amazed by it. Either way, I kind of still have to talk about a few things it introduces, because if not, you won't understand anything that comes forward. Because, let's just say the characters and themes that this episode introduces is kinda, not to say important, but completely indispensable for the series moving forward, and are key figures in every future story arc, including its ending. So yeah, this episode is pretty important. Don't skip out on it. So let's start with the characters. Marcy. Marcy is the 3rd girl that got warped to Amphibia by the Calamity Box, and she casually spawned inside the city walls. Nice. Either way, and in the Planters end up meeting her when they arrive at Newtopia. She's charming, she's amazing, she's smart, she's quirky, she's clumsy, she is lovable. Perfect character for my second favorite. I'm sorry, Sasha's too good. And, yeah. I love you, Marcy, but not more than Sasha. I'm sorry. Another character we get introduced here is Lady Olivia, a character that acts radically different to her future appearances. Who knows, maybe she was just stressed. Another character we get half introduced to is Andreas, the main villain of the series, and trust me, they don't even try to hide it, even sporting in the classic chessboard. I swear, Disney, if you put in another chessboard, I'm gonna take a chess class because I love all these franchises. Either way, yeah, we don't get much introduced to him here, only his voice, which is the same as the Princess and the Frog villain. Kinda fitting, to be honest. Either way, another key theme the series introduces is Sasha. Okay, yeah. Despite not appearing in the episode, Sasha is all over this episode. Like, literally, in dialogue, in characters' way of acting, to put it some way. She is all over it, and she doesn't even make an appearance. Hell, not even a post-credit scene. Either way, yeah. It definitely explains how much of an effect Sasha has had over Anne and Marcy and the Planters. And Anne and Marcy because, you know, they don't know where to go from now. Sasha always made the plan. And now they're kind of doing it them. And yeah, in their weird, charming way. And for the Planters isn't Sprig, I mean, because god damn, Sasha let this kid traumatized. And to put it bluntly, but yeah. He does not want Anne to suffer like she did with Sasha, and he is a keen eye. And another testament that this episode makes is how much Sprig hates her and detests her. an element that will be for sure seen in an episode where we'll see the characters interacting with each other and solving their differences. Right? Right? We'll get to that a bit. Well, don't get to that, but I'll comment on it later. Scavenger hunt is okay. You get to have some fun around with Marcy solving a puzzle, but I don't know why it feels kind of stupid that the king sends a message through a puzzle. He could have just sent the message directly instead of this. It's kind of absurd, but hey, he'll do him. Let's move on.
Ooh, look guys, I'm a strawlrus, like a walrus, but with straws.
What's a walrus?
I love this guy!
Boy, did that line not age well. Either way, the Planters Check-In is our official introduction to King Andrius. It lasts about a third of the episode. The rest of it is dedicated to Sprig having fun around the hotel the Planters are staying in, since they were given a credit card with unlimited money. And granted, it's pretty fun. There's some cool references here and there, but ultimately it's pretty fun. Oh yeah, Mabel's voice actress guest stars in this episode as Bella, and she's pretty fun too.
Thanks, kid. It's people like you that make me ever so slightly more positive about the future.
Okay. That line is amazing if you've watched Gravity Falls. Just amazing. This episode is pretty good. Lost in Utopia is...
Kick in the neck! Yoink!
Oh boy.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Oh yeah, and this. This is amazing. Sprig Gets Schooled is okay. It's fun, it has kind of a few wacky moments, but yeah, that's about it. It's not that it's bad or boring, it's just that, I don't know, there's nothing much to talk it to. It's kind of a fun montage of Sprig going to school, failing, and then a prison break. Yeah. Kind of hard to make jokes of it too.
Forget higher learning or big opportunities. You belong at the bottom of the socioeconomic barrel with me.
Yay! Wait, is this a good thing? Oh, what the heck. Yay!
This is Amphibia. I can make jokes about anything. Little Frogtown is pretty good. I always love noir settings, and seeing Amphibia tackle one with its humor is amazing. I love it. Not one of my favorite of the seasons, but definitely a good one. Moving on.
Looks like I hit a dead end. Without a source on the sauce, or even an address, I was out of luck. Well, that works.
Hopping Mall is amazing. Easily one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. And you know what? It only truly achieved it because of the final scene. The rest of the episode, not to disregard it completely, but it's still fun and entertaining, but it's like night and day compared to the last scene. It's kind of incredible. Either way, I do plan to make a future video talking about this scene exclusively, but it'd be a disservice not to talk about it now. So let's go. Anne is sitting in the balcony, on her own, thinking about her family, as she holds the gift she got for her mother. As this is happening, Sprig wakes up from a nightmare, according to him. He goes up to Anne and asks her about her mother. Anne starts talking about her, all the things she liked, all the happy memories she has about her, and in my favorite line that she delivers and that she says in this entire show, she sums it up perfectly.
She annoyed me sometimes too. Like, in the kitchen, she'd always sing these goofy Thai love songs, and man, was her singing bad. Woof, that woman was beyond tone deaf. You know, the funny thing is, right now, I would give anything just to hear her singing.
After this extreme display of emotions, Spriggs says that she is lucky that she got to meet her mother, because he never got to meet his, and that he somehow misses her even though he never met her. He asks Anne if this is even a possibility, but cuts himself off, saying that it's ridiculous, before Anne hugs him and they both cry into the night sky. I think it's genuinely genius, and it adds a tone of realism that Amphibia makes it feel special. That is why Amphibia is so great. And I'm not lying that that line of Anne's is my favorite in the entire show. I love it. Because when you really think about it, Amphibia should, from a human perspective, it's terrifying. A child going missing out of nowhere after her birthday for 3 months, that sounds terrifying. And it definitely adds a layer of tragedy to the girls getting trapped in Amphibia, despite how much fun they have and how much goofy the show is. Yeah, it's still pretty sad. Either way, time to move on to the next one. Sleepover to Endo Sleepovers is pretty good. In this episode, Anne and the Planters go to a sleepover with Marcy, in which they do a dare in which they go to the basement of the castle, which is forbidden. For some reason. Well, basically they encounter these weird creatures, which I'm gonna ruin the surprise. They're called ghostfish, which basically chase them around, and basically when they see their own reflection in the mirror, they become physical and can be defeated. That's the gist of it. Though the really important beats of this episode happen in the background. I'm gonna summarize them all here. In the basement, we found a bunch of coffins. I could count 7, though there could be more. A garden with a chained up moss man, and a picture that somebody really hated. Wonder if this is some kind of foreshadowing that this episode is trying to tell us. Either way, another important thing in this episode is Sasha. Again, I mentioned this in Marcy at the Gates, but she's really all over this episode. The girl's constantly trying to make what Sasha would do, reminding Anne that she needs to make things right with her and, you know, get her back so they can all go back home. Either way, it's a pretty fun episode. Oh my god, dude. A Day at the Aquarium is a bunch of stuff. It has more stuff than Reunion. And I have to talk about it all in one go. Okay, let's go for it. Okay, so the episode begins, and immediately we start up with the audience with the king. He reveals to us that the gems can be recharged through 3 temples found in a book. Either way, the book only gives the location of one of these temples, and Marcy and Anne are told to prepare to go. But the planters have to leave for harvesting season. Wow, hop really. And Anne wants to go with them. But Marcy says she shouldn't because it doesn't make sense. So this episode immediately turns into Anne and the planters' last day together. Yep, we're going for that. Either way, this episode is amazing. It is filled with season 1 memorabilia and references. I got a lot of nostalgia watching it when it first came out, and I still get a lot of nostalgia watching it today. The fact that the thing that makes them break completely is the first animal they face is pretty cool in my opinion. Either way, after a long day at the aquarium, yeah, they get banned for life from the aquarium. Of course they do. It's the planters and Anne. What did they expect? Either way, they get ready to leave. The planters leave for harvesting season, and after a warm-filled goodbye, Marcy tells Anne that she can go with them because she's trustworthy to get the music box and they need to make sure it's okay. You know, you would have saved Anne the very long jog of catching up to a car if you had just said that earlier, you know? You could have saved her some energy there. Utopia is huge, but either way. As Anne goes to Wartwood once more, Marcy is spoken to by King Andreas, giving her some sort of proposition. Wonder what this could lead to. Okay, this episode gives us a lot, okay? it's kind of really hard. I love it because of the all references and, them crying every 5 minutes. Definitely reflects my life right now, especially with the excruciating pain my arms are giving me, but that's another thing entirely. But yeah, this episode is pretty good. A really good mid-season finale. Yeah, I'm going to take a little break from recordings. Again, my arms hurt a lot, so for different reasons and not for any weird ones, despite how weird I am. But either way, let's move on to the next episode, The Shut-In. I hesitated to talk about The Shut-In because even though it's a pretty good episode and has a lot of fan service in many ways and has a lot of pretty good jokes and a pretty neat switch up to the end credits, it's not canon. At least I'm pretty sure it's not. Like, Matt Brawley put a timeline that The Shut-In could hypothetically fit in, but I still think it's not canon, generally because of the ending. Either way, it is one of the darker Disney specials for Halloween, I can't deny that. Phineas and Ferb, this ain't. But either way, it's still a pretty good episode, and it kind of marked Amphibia's official hiatus. I don't remember exactly, I think it was April 19th when the show came back. So yeah, let's move on. This part reminded me of a regular show. That's about it. Night Drivers. I forgot this episode even existed. Like, it's a good episode, don't get me wrong, it's good, but I think it's kind of forgettable. Like, Zachariah Nettles is a character that is rarely mentioned again and is only an Easter egg in the future. Pretty weird. Either way, I still think this episode is okay. I think it gets overshadowed by the next one by a lot. But, yeah. I personally don't blame myself for forgetting this episode. It's just kind of overshadowed. Like, if this was in season 1, I could see this being a lot more memorable. But, yeah. Overall, pretty mid. I'd say this is the worst episode of season 2, and it's pretty alright in my opinion. It even has some pretty good moments. So yeah, definitely setting a good precedent. Moving on.
Nice! Using Toadie's stone body as a shield.
Wait, he's stone?
Return to Wartwood is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. Who knows? Maybe it'll be my favorite by the end of the season. Either way, I love this episode a lot. It's not only the return to the prime location of the show from season 1, in which many of the main adventures took place, but it's also really wacky and fun. Like, the Planters take a really mundane issue and push it to its absolute extreme. The fact that they come to the conclusion that they can summon a demon to solve their problem is really funny. I also found really funny a bunch of the jokes, like the Stone Toadie joke, the ending joke with Sprig, and, the whole ritual part to me was god-bustingly hilarious. It's even in the background of my channel, if you check it out. Don't know how many people have actually seen it, but I personally love this episode. It's really funny, it's wacky, definitely best of the entire series so far. It'll probably change because, boy, the season 2B pick up the pace. Trust me, you'll see. Moving on. Ivy on the Run is, kind of boring. It's pretty generic, and it's interesting to know some of Felicia's past, but other than that, yeah, no. It's kind of weird that Anne knew Muay Thai before coming to Amphibia, considering she has never used it. She's always been more of a sword user. She's never done any physical attacks. But okay. Moving on. After the Rain. Ooh boy. Okay, so Anne finds out that Hop Hop hid the music box in the front yard and never send it to some contacts. So she gets pissed at him for lying to her this entire time. And yeah, she leaves, but then comes back, and Hop-Up explains that, he did it to protect the planters, and recalls the time when Sprig and Polly's parents died when he was out, and some herons attacked, and supposedly they got eaten by herons. And Anne forgives him, and yeah. This is the most controversial episode of the series, and honestly, I can tell why. At first, I didn't know, but after Amphibia's ended, yeah, I can tell why. Because there's two ways to look at it. Introspectively, or retrospectively. In introspective, it's pretty good. It does have some flaws here and there, but in retrospect, this episode is quite inconsistent with the rest of the series. Let's start off with the introspective view, where it's pretty okay. In introspective, this seems like a good episode, The characters have solid motives to do what they do, and have solid motives to forget Hop-Pop. Hop-Pop have solid motives to lie. There are some flops here and there, like Anne being willing to abandon Sprig and Polly. Polly, her sister, kind of, and Sprig, her best friend, and the only one who hasn't lied to her in a big anime betrayal way. So, yeah. Kind of a dick move and really out of character in my opinion, but that can be overlooked, This episode is still good. It's another thing that it's still pretty funny, and I love Bill Farmer's performance. It's pretty good. But in retrospective, there are a few flaws. One, Anne does this exact same to her parents in Season 3. Yep, she literally lies to her parents about huge important information that they could have definitely wanted to know. Like, really important information. Another thing she does is instantly forgive Sasha for betraying her twice and trying to kill Sprig and Hop-Pop and taking over Amphibia. Or attempting to. Well, she did for like 30 minutes, but still. She took less time to forgive Sasha and Marcy, which, to be fair, Marcy also had solid motives, but what she did was worse than Hop-Up, but she had some sort of rationale and comprehension. But Sasha didn't. She did it because she wanted power and control. This looks really inconsistent in retrospective, because she took 3 seconds to forgive Sasha and 2 episodes to forget Hop-Pop. I mean, Marcy's more comprehensible, She was in distress, and I'm pretty sure Anne would have understood that. But come on, this is stupid. She didn't even let Hop-Pop explain himself. But she left Sasha explain herself? This is really inconsistent. When I first saw this episode, it was when it came out, and I thought it was good. And in introspective, it's still good, but in retrospective, no. Yeah, well, I guess I should probably mention that we are starting the temple quest next episode, and that this episode has ramifications in that one. So, yeah. Moving on. The first temple is okay. Okay, as I mentioned in After the Rain, it is not that good in retrospective. It's good in introspective, with its flaws, but still good. But in retrospective, it's kinda not as good. The same thing kinda happens with this episode, but to a lesser degree. Mainly because the main conflict of this episode revolves around the previous one. I already ranted about how it doesn't make sense that it takes 2 episodes for Anne to forget Hop-Pop, and not really, but it takes her, again, 1 page of a book sold separately to forgive Sasha, despite betraying her twice, and a few minutes to forgive Marcy. Like, again, Marcy had some rationale to her, but Sasha didn't. It should have taken 5 episodes to forgive Sasha if we're going to stay consistent, to be honest. I'm going to talk about this more, Sasha, in Season 3, but, again, I just don't like how inconsistent it was. If Anne would have taken a while to forgive Sasha, again, 5 episodes, it would have been fine. This episode wouldn't have been as, I don't want to say bad because it's not really bad, just inconsistent. Other than that, I do believe that the rest of the episode is pretty good. We got to see the mule from the intro for the first time in the temple, and I believe the temple's really cool design. I like Marcy's arc of, being mindful of the things happening to the people around her. I think that was pretty well done. And it even has an ending scene. In it, we see General Yunan reporting to King Andreas about a supposed meeting of the Toad Lords, which apparently is very bad. But it's interrupted by Marcy's message that despite losing, they managed to recharge the gem. After hearing this, Andreas goes down to his basement, in which he scares some shadowfish, and he greets a giant orb with a lot of eyes, and calls him Lord. I'll name drop this guy later, it's epic when it happens in the show. Either way, what the hell? This was one of my first theory videos. And it's kind of nostalgic seeing this scene again. Of course, the episode doesn't hold up as much, but that's not the fault of the episode itself, more of decisions made later. But I still think this scene is pretty effective at introducing us to, well, the main villain of the show, and also, of course, a future episode, which is the meeting of the Toad Lord, which I will talk about later. Moving on. New Wartwood is filler. It has some funny moments, but other than that, it's rather unremarkable. I do like the scene where Mayor Toadstool takes, partial blame. I like that. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of just there. It's not bad by any means, but it's just fine.
Balloon, Toady!
It drifted away, sir.
It what? Ow, dang it. That's the third time that's happened today. Toady, you're promoted to balloon now. Woo! Well, I hope we can do business soon. Fly me away, Toady. Hiya, Toady.
Me and Anne have changed. We're different now.
Some of us even sound different.
What?
You know what, I have to agree after watching all these episodes in order. Either way, Friend or Frobo is entertaining. It has some fun moments, some pretty fluent animation, but it really only aims to introduce Frobo, which is generally only used in fight scenes because he can only speak like a few words. But either way, he can be fun sometimes. But other than that, remember when I said that Chalkstop Polly did something good when making Polly only annoying to the characters and not the audience? Well, somehow they fail at that here, and Polly's an extreme dick to everyone in the first 5 minutes. She's so unlikable in this episode. If this was the only episode of Amphibia you watched, or was the first, I wouldn't be surprised if you thought she was the worst character ever. Really, I wouldn't. Either way, Wartwood got destroyed a second time this episode, so, yeah. Pretty normal on schedule, to be honest. Either way, moving on.
A store just for seeds? Why, we could be there for hours!
Don't tempt me.
Have fun in there!
You know, with that title, many people thought it was a Sasha episode. Other than that, there's nothing much to talk about. Yeah, no, despite this seemingly important ending, this is filler. Nothing of this comes back at all. He doesn't even show up in the Toad Lords meeting. Either way, I do think this episode is still pretty funny. Has some pretty cool moments. But other than that, yeah, it's okay. Also, I'm starting to realize this is mostly filler. I don't know when the next temple will be, but hopefully soon. But the next episode is Maddie and Marcy, so I don't know. Moving on.
Any questions?
Kind of.
Several.
What's the sitch with the parking tickets?
Maddie and Marcy is okay. It has a few funny moments and an entertaining story, but that's about it. The only other thing to comment here is that Wartwood gets destroyed. Again. This is getting old already. The Second Temple. You know, out of all the episodes regarding the temples, I think this is the weakest one. Yes, in retrospect, the first one had its problems, but it wasn't completely unremarkable. This episode is just kind of Anne going through some trials. You know, there wasn't really any change in her thoughts like Marcy. It was more showing how she's changed and how she's going to own up to her mistakes. The only thing other than that is actually important for the future of the series is that we get introduced to the Order, barely, because they don't come back, and of course, the blue gem isn't completely charged, so yeah, that will definitely come back.
Remember the Toad Lord meeting Yunin mentioned? Well, Barrel's Warhammer is that meeting. Basically, Sasha pitches the rebellion plan to the Toad Lords. Yumbo, Dead Guy, and Grimes' sister. Yeah, no, they're not really that important, but whatever. Either way, she gets the Warhammer, but Percy and Braddock abandon her, due to her putting her objectives before them, her friends. This is a pattern with Sasha's character. Her friends come after her objectives. She'll always have her objectives before her friends. And since Grime has that same line of thought, well, that's why he sticks with her. That and he cares about her. Either way, I think this is a great demonstration of Sasha's current mental state and character. And honestly, I just really like the theme. Toad Lords reuniting to see if they take part in a rebellion. That's a pretty cool concept for an episode. Either way, we're moving into the last round of the series. Well, not series. Well, season 2. So, yeah. Hopefully this will release soon. Moving on. Owl House reference. Either way, Bessie and Michelangelo. Anne gets a vest the episode. Snail cute thing. Third Temple, moving on. Okay. Final stretch. 4 episodes. Let's go. The Third Temple. The Third Temple is pretty good. I thought the reconciliation was done pretty well. The pacing felt natural. They had solid reasons to reconciliate. So yeah, I think Anne and Sasha's reconciliation was pretty well done. Other than that, I think the shippers saw this episode very differently.
Oh, me vengo. Lo suponía.
Yeah, that's how I envisioned them seeing this episode. Either way, there are some remarkable moments, like, you know, Sasha's whole fight with the Titan, which was pretty impressive to say the least. I even used it in an AMV I did in the middle of this channel's life, I think, but that's not the point. Either way, Third Temple is pretty good, has some pretty cute moments, and ended the rock thing. The dinner is great. I think it shows the best of every character, especially Grime. I love how nice and sophisticated he is, but he's still evil. A far departure from what he is in Season 1, but I love it. I also enjoy Sasha and Sprig's clear hatred for each other. Honestly, it's one of the best things of the episode, and I'm kinda sad that was the last we saw of it. Wish there was more of it in Season 3, because there was definitely a reason for it to be in Season 3, and yeah. I think it's great. Definitely one of the best of Season 2 by far. I love the twist that Grimes' crazy-ass volcano is actually a very casual thing. I love that for some reason. Either way, moving on.
Could you at least remove the sword? And the hidden daggers?
But what if I need them?
How do did you even walk?
Battle of the Bands is great. It is one of the best episodes of the entire series. It is one of the greatest songs of the entire series. Not the best. The season 2 trailer is still the best song, but either way, I think it's great. This definitely fully redeems Sasha, and is definitely shown of all the development the characters have had up to this point. And by characters, I mean her and Anne, because that's really the only characters we see interacting in a meaningful way. I do find it weird how Toadie is the one to redeem Sasha. It is kinda weird, but it does earn him a top status on my tier list. So yeah. And I could name a bunch of more positives, but this episode is kind of conflicting to me, because I know what happens in True Colors, which is the next episode, and it's kinda weird. This episode makes it seem like Sasha and Grime are fully good guys, like they're cool with the main cast. But in True Colors, they straight up betray the main cast and throw them into a dungeon. This is kind of conflicting with this episode, but it's still pretty good, The only other complaint I have is this is another great opportunity to do a Sasha and Sprig episode and have Sprig redeem Sasha, which would have been 10 times better than Toadie. I mean, come on, it would have made more sense. What did it cost you, Matt? What did it cost you? Either way, another complaint I have is that the episode isn't 3 hours and 20 minutes, and yes, those 3 hours are the Grimes song, but damn it, that would have been worth it. I love Grime in this episode. He is by far one of the highlights of Season 2. Either way, it's finally time to end Season 2. I'm not mentally ready for this. I'm informing you now. I am not mentally ready for this at all. But let's go. If I didn't know how to do Reunion, I don't know how the hell am I going to do True Colors, but here we go. True Colors, the best episode of all of Amphibia, or at least one of the best. That is not a debate, that is not a thing. Yeah, it got leaked, but hey, this is Disney we're talking about. Of course they leak an important episode of a cartoon. Either way, I'm going to follow the similar structure that I did with other important episodes, so let's do this. Okay, speedrun summary, ready, set, go. We are at Utopia, get the box to Andreas. No, we don't. Sasha steals it. The Toads take over Utopia. Damn, are those guys efficient. Too bad they'll be damn near useless in a few minutes. Either way, Anne gets pissed at Sasha. Reasonably. But either way, Sasha gets pissed back and, well, she throws her into a dungeon. What a good friend. Either way, Anne says this isn't over and they're not friends anymore. Boy, will she eat those words in a few episodes. Either way, they get thrown into the dungeon, but escape thanks to you, Nan. Thanks, bro. Either way, they formulate a plan to somehow stop the Toads. Hop Hop acts mediocrely. Polly and the robot and the efficient person destroy the Toads in a physical manner. Anne and Sprig go to spin a thing. Either way, while they're decorating, Sasha gets a sword, reflects on how she's a bad person, even though she should have realistically been reflecting that she is concerning her reactions at the end of the third temple and the entirety of Battle of the Bands and the dinner. But either way, they discover that Andres is evil. Wow, you guys have to be the smartest here. Either way, they go, and, well, Anne doesn't want to cooperate because she doesn't trust Sasha reasonably. For some reason, she trusts her later, but either way, they have a big epic duel. I remember the music differently. Either way, Sasha loses because she's not trying to kill Anne. Sprig defeats Grime somehow, even though he was able to go toe-to-toe with Yunnan at his worst physical state,
with a stick. He can't take care of a frog with one of the legendary weapons of a hero that is supercharged with calamity powers. Sure. Well, either way, Polly scratches her butt, and, well, the rebellion is stopped. Yep, the Toadlords never did anything efficient. Either way, Andreas gets the music box, despite Sasha's warnings, and explains his entire backstory on how Newtopia was oh so great, but thanks to his mistake, aka he was betrayed by friends as well. Wow, what a coincidence. He lost the music box. But now he has it back, and now he's evil, and now everybody knows he's evil. He also reveals that Marcy got them stuck here knowing fully that the music box worked. Marcy says a bunch of sick shit that shows that Anne is the only sane person here. For the moment. Either way, yeah, Anne kinda decides, you know what, all these people betrayed me, might as well work together. They have a big Avengers a la fight with weapons until, you know, they smash Frobo, Polly gets her legs, they grab the music box, Spriggs gets kidnapped. Great job, Sprig. Didn't you beat Grime because you were fast and agile? What's stopping you from fleeing from Andreas? He's a huge guy. Yeah, he's pretty quick, but you're quicker. Either way, they put back the music box. Andreas throws Sprig off the window. Gee, what a surprise of an efficient villain. Either way, Anne goes piss Super Saiyan, and I'm probably going to be a bit serious here because, well, it's the epic part of the episode. Either way, Anne, remembering every epic moment with Season 1, and oh my god, they put the ending out. They went hard on this, I'm not going to lie, they went hard on this. And goes Super Saiyan Blue, extracting the power from the gen that was left in her in the second temple. Beats up Andreas, rather epically, I must say. Marcy saves Sprig, as Anne is beating up Andreas, but she runs out of juice, because guess what? You have 2 rings, Anne. I guess 20 more accurately, but still. Either way, Andreas is about to kill Anne, but Marcy opens a portal. And yeah, Andreas doesn't like that. He's the only one he can open portals to conquer other worlds. Either way, Marcy maintains it open while Sasha holds Andreas and gets thrown at a retcon window. Yeah, you'll see. Either way, the planters and Anne manage to go through the portal, but Marcy has to do something. I don't really know what she was trying to do here, honestly. It's never explained. But she gets stabbed. Oh, good. I love child murders. They're so relatable. Either way, yeah, that's basically the summary of the episode. And the planters end up on Earth. Sasha is falling off a window in Amphibia. No, she isn't. That was retconned. And Marcy is stabbed. Oh yeah, and the season 3 intro. Either way, let's talk about this episode. Okay, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. Yes, there is bad stuff. Let's start up with something I mentioned. How the hell did Grime beat Sprig? Seeing Grime's previous feats at his low points, he should have easily handled Sprig, but no. Apparently, Sprig's speed outhands any strength, IQ, battle IQ, experience, hacks and abilities, weapons, combat speed, combat experience that, you know, Grime has. And Grime isn't slow. He does some pretty quick and slick movements here. So, it's pretty weird that he got defeated, especially when he was able to hold his own pretty well with Yunnan at one of his low points. Another thing I find pretty weird is that the Toadlords never do anything after this. Not anything meaningful. You know, when Yunnan mentioned them, I thought they were going to be some sort of secondary villain. You know, some sort of influence on Sasha to become more of a villain. But no, they were just kinda used by Sasha. Besides Beatrix, I don't think any of them appear again. I mean, I get the old man, but the samurai guy looked cool. Either way. Yeah, the episode was leaked. But this is Disney we're talking about again. They can't keep an episode
before the release date for the life of them, so yeah, I'm not surprised. And Sasha's development from the dinner and the Battle of the Bands is thrown under the bus. Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot see the Sasha that came off of those 2 episodes betraying Anne and Marcy after restoring their friendship and having basically the best version of it. If the rebellion happened by accident, that would have been fine. But no, Sasha started all this rebellion willingly. She threw the command. She saw Grime give the signal. Everything was orchestrated by her, and it was her plan. And yeah, I find this quite a bit inconsistency. Because, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. All the development she had in those episodes is basically just done here, again, after being forgotten at the beginning of this episode. I'm sorry, it makes no sense. Either way, those are my gripes with the episode. I know they're a bit... I know that's a bit of a thing, but you know what? I still think this episode is great. The fight scenes are great. The moments are great. Characters get their time to shine. The emotion is everywhere. It has a great bombastic ending, a cliffhanger. It's basically everything that, this makes this series special and that the series does greatly. Something that I think is greatly forgotten in the first 17 episodes of Season 3. I'm not saying those episodes are bad, but I'm thinking that those episodes kind of don't capture the magic Amphibia originally had. At least not in the same way. We will get to Season 3 next time, and in a few minutes I will talk about it. But either way, here everything is all over the place, and it all feels super connected. Spring and Anne's relationship, Marcy's death and tragic backstory, kinda. Andreas' story. It all feels connected and well-paced and explained with enough reasons and logic to understand why these characters are here and committing the actions they commit. It makes sense. And that is why True Colors is great. And the credits, man, they show us all the moments. I didn't talk about it in Battle of the Bands, but I love the group picture shown at the ending of that episode. I love it. Either way, let's move on to theories and information on Season 3. Okay, there's no theories. The creators were pretty clear on what they wanted to do with Season 3. And yeah, with the Season 3 intro, there wasn't much left to theorize about. And the Season 3 intro was only at the end of True Colors because of the leak that happened with True Colors. I don't know why Matt Brawley did this. I guess to throw the fandom a bone, but he was the real victim of the all situation. And yeah, I don't really know why he did this. But okay, I am really thankful for it. It gave us a lot of content to talk about. Either way, I will bring up my own theory on Darcy. I remember I said she was going to be roboticized and that she was going to have a Neo-Metal Sonic form, which would have been really cool. But in the end, well, she kind of just grabbed the moon. Similar to the comet of the Space Colony arc. I got the theory right. No, I didn't. Either way, yeah. A few months passed with Amphibia having ended, and I don't remember when this was. I think it was like, I want to say September, but yeah, I don't really know. September of 2021, around that time, we got confirmed that Amphibia would be returning October 3rd, I believe, with the first half of the 3rd season. And later, we got revealed titles and all that juicy stuff that I won't be talking about because at that point, I'd just rather talk about the episodes, which will be in part 3. So, without further ado, let's get into the conclusion of this story, Amphibia Season 3. Let's go. Well, this is the end.
The end of the trilogy that wasn't supposed to be a trilogy, that was supposed to be a summer hobby project thing that ended up extending almost a year. Yeah, I don't plan things very well. Either way, I think it's high time we finish this project and the final huge video of this channel. Emphasis on huge. I'll talk about that later. Either way, let's finish Amphibia with the final part, Season 3. Season 3 is the most controversial season of the entire series. I am honestly not surprised, seeing as I've watched this, and yeah, I have my gripes with it. I think the main reason people don't like Season 3 was because Season 2 was filled with lore, good character moments, and generally just a magical feel to it. And I think Amphibia really helped with these things. The problem with Season 3? We're not in Amphibia. We are on Earth, having mundane but wacky adventures. It's no insanity that the Season 2 most memorable episodes are known for, and not to mention we are having a full-on war against literal warlords in the other side. I think people would have much rather seen a different take on this, and not to mention on the later parts of the season, certain arcs and character moments are kinda handled really weirdly, but we'll get to those when we get to those. The main reason I think people dislike Season 3 is because we don't get an emphasis on the lore and story that Season 2 had. We're stuck on Earth, and with Earth lore, we don't have the war of the amphibians going on our side. Our main point of view character is Anne. We only get one Sasha episode. And yes, we see Andreas' perspective from time to time, but he's generally focused on Earth, so yeah, we don't really get to see much of Amphibia in the first half of the season. And honestly, I think that's to its detriment. Seeing the huge Mark true colors left, I think this was kinda disappointing for most people that got hooked on the show. So, yeah, I think that's why people dislike Season 3. Me personally, though, I actually like this part of the season. I would have much rather preferred it be handled differently. Not to discard the Earth episodes entirely, but have them balanced with some Amphibia episodes, maybe. I'll get into that when we need to, but yeah. My main problem with this part of the series is its handling of characters and story arcs, and generally its inconsistency with established things that the previous seasons did. Well, it's easier to explain when we get to the episodes. It's kind of hard to do. But either way, let's finish this. And let's start the beginning of the end with the new normal. Parting right off where we left off. Anne gets back to Earth, goes back to her old house, reunites with her parents, explains everything to them. We passed like, I don't know, what, a week in a really relatable song, I think it was, until eventually Anne gets tired of the indoors and wants to go to the supermarket. But unbeknownst to her, Andrea sends a robot after her and a new Cynthia Coven book because he's relatable like that. And yeah, they have to fight it around the supermarket while hiding it from her parents, which is a pretty entertaining fight. And ultimately, the episode culminates in Anne summarizing basically everything she has to do.
All they have to do is protect you guys and keep you a secret. Oh, and find a way to reopen a portal to Amphibia and return you home. And somehow defeat King Andreas, and make up with my two best friends, and bring them back to Earth. Okay, it sounds like a lot. But I can do it! I'm perfectly capable.
Thanks, Anne. You kind of saved me the job of spelling it myself. Thanks a lot. Either way, I don't know how to feel about this episode very much. I like it a lot. The second half is really fun. But I think the first, 5 minutes of it are kind of rushed. We get to Earth, we get internet, nice. We get back to Anne's home, everything up to her parents' reaction is done pretty well until we just rush through the explanation. And honestly, Anne's parents have pretty mundane reactions. Like, really mundane. Like, yeah, but not really in a realistic way. And, you know, it's kind of weird, especially considering that Amphibia has always have some sort of groundness to the girls getting trapped in Amphibia. But, yeah. I'm not particularly a fan of how that story arc was, you know, given. Don't get me wrong, it was pretty good, but, certain parts of it were pretty good, but, I don't know, it could have been a lot more fine-tuned. This part could have easily gone through the entire run. But, either way, we move on to our earthly adventures in a pretty okay introduction. Moving on. Hop Till You Drop is filler. And you know, something tells me that's going to be the majority of Season 3. Like, yeah, Season 2 and Season 1 had filler. They had episodes that didn't have any emotional character moments or anything important to move on with the story. But it took a while to get to those episodes. With Season 3, yeah, no, they just throw you right into it. I don't know why this feels a lot more fillery than the first 2 seasons. Maybe it's the episode concept or the ideas, but I don't know. Either way, this episode is okay. The planters basically can't keep themselves in one place. Hop keeps getting scammed. Sprig keeps trying to touch things that'll kill him. Polly keeps getting into fights, so Anne tests them in the mall, which obviously goes how any frog talking in the mall would go like. And yeah, no, the end of the episode. The only other thing is that this episode gave us Green Hop Pop and another one of Anne's acquaintances, Gabby. Yeah, no, that's it. Turning Point is a really good episode. And honestly, it's probably one of my favorite of the season so far. Yeah, it's because it's a Sasha episode, favorite character and all that, but come on, can you blame me? This episode was basically made to fully redeem Sasha, to make her fully aware of her actions and what she must do moving forward, to become better as a person. And I think that aspect of the episode is done really well. Another thing that's done really well is Grimes' personality and attitude towards Sasha. I think that was done really well. Seeing her as a friend and less of a, you know, fellow maniac. A thing that I don't find so well done is Wortwood immediately forgiving Sasha for lying to them. This could easily be another manipulation tactic. Yeah, they don't know she betrayed Anne again, but come on. This seems a bit quick and cheap. Like I said in my original video for this episode, a simple phrase that they were going to keep an eye on her, like they trust her, but not completely, that would have been fine, but no, they just trust her wholeheartedly. Though in Wortwood's defense, they did turn in Anne and have been a lot more compassionate since then, so yeah. And this isn't the worst case of forgiving someone without any real motive in this season. Moving on. Thigh feud. For real this time. Yep, I mistakenly called Stumpy's episode Thigh Feud in Season 1, and now I can finally redeem it by talking about the actual Thigh Feud. It's funny. Yeah, just remember this is a Season 3 episode that takes place on Earth. Let's move on.
No, my frog! This food, it's starting to be pink!
Hey, I wouldn't mind being pink.
Eh?
Maybe it'll help me with my next Star Trip audition. Excuse me, I'll have whatever he had.
Sure thing.
What? You fools! That was a lie! You're all morons!
Huh? Who you calling a moron?
Adventures in Katsuni is actually a pretty in-tone episode for Amphibia. I really like the Cousin Stanley joke. It's really funny to me. I also enjoy the small moment that Mr. Boontra has with the planners near the end. It's really sweet and, definitely sees how dark actually Amphibia is. Well, not dark, but kind of sad, I like that a lot. And the episode is still pretty funny, and hosting the very first Karen joke of the show.
Nuts! Everybody out! There's a fire!
But I'm still waiting for my order.
This shawarma's good, but is it worth your life, Karen?
I don't know if that's the only one, but it's funny. Either way, this episode is okay. There's no real lore other than this tidbit of foreshadowing, but I'll talk that at the end. Either way, this episode was pretty good. Probably the best of Season 3 so far. Moving on. Fight at the Museum is pretty good. I mean, it definitely shows how much Anne cares about the planters and how desperate she is to get back to Amphibia. And, how Sasha and Marcy kind of left her with trust issues, Either way, I still think this episode is pretty good, even though it's kinda simple. I'll give my full opinion on the Earth episodes and why so many people don't enjoy them and why most people don't enjoy them more than the Season 2 adventures in Amphibia. So yeah, when we get done with them. So either way, this episode was actually one of the better ones. It's pretty fun. Dr. Jan is a cool character. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We also find out about a vase and, that somehow amphibians were on Earth. If you didn't have that theory before, well, you're definitely going to have it now. So, whee! Either way, yeah. The final scene of this episode actually takes place after, at close to the beginning of the next, which is Temple Frogs.
Eat the rich!
Amphibia Planner ran for mayor a few seasons back. Definitely because of the humility of his heart. Either way, moving on. Temple Frogs. I got braces, so I don't know if I sound different in this recording. But Temple Frogs is, meh. Or really, you can just skip to the end on this one. Actually, you can skip this one entirely. The only thing this does is, show us the mother of all, introduce us to the mother of all, more properly said. And that's it. You can basically skip this one. It literally does nothing. Either way, let's move on. Oh my god, is this a funny, emotionally packed Earth episode with references? Are we back in Season 2? Okay, but jokes aside, this episode is pretty good. It has some decent emotional moments and some pretty funny jokes. And even a nod to Loggle. But honestly, I just know this episode from now on because of the FNAF references. Literally, I don't know how I not noticed this as this episode came out. But there's a bear that's dressed like Chuck E. Cheese. There is a bunny with a red bow tie dancing in a tiled floor. How did I not see this when this episode came out? Did I forget about half the stuff about FNAF? Either way, again, there are some pretty funny moments, but the main takeaway is the FNAF references, honestly. I completely forgot these existed. And oh, of course, Fork, Knife, and TikTok. That's definitely funny. Either way, moving on. Ants Terminator is a pretty good episode. I find it pretty entertaining, and the character moments are really good. But, yeah. Even though I do believe this episode is good and in the better of the Earth bunch, yeah, Anne is kind of inconsistent here. Remember how Hop Pop lied, hid the music box in order to protect his family? And Anne kind of hated him for that and, took a while to forgive him. Yeah, no, Anne does the same thing here, and it's kind of inconsistent. I mean, again, both characters have reasonable motive to do it, but it's kind of inconsistent that Anne criticized Hop Pop for doing it, then did it herself, and there is no mention of this. Either way, I still think this episode is good. I find it particularly funny, especially Mr. Moonjoy, he's the best. But other than that, this episode is pretty good. Either way, moving on. Okay, Mr. X is pretty funny. The character is really charismatic. RuPaul does a good job voicing him. And honestly, I think the episode overall has a pretty good sense of humor. This is kind of the introduction of a new mainstay villain, though it really isn't. Mr. X is just gonna kind of be chasing us from time to time. So yeah, get used to seeing him around here.
It's 4-on-1. When he comes in, we'll rush him and run. See you soon.
Man, this city, I tell ya.
Sprig's birthday is pretty fun. I enjoyed it a lot. The middle of the episode is just kind of like a huge montage, but the ending is pretty good and sweet. I liked it a lot. Either way, I do think it's kind of an extra, though I do like how they make references to the first episode. Either way, moving on.
I just don't know what to do. Should I quit my office job to pursue my passion of stand-up comedy?
Lord, send me a sign! Hey, have you guys heard the one about the lady who probably just made a really bad decision?
Spider Sprig. A superhero with a scarf fighting a villain with a metal arm that happens to be an old man. I wonder if this is a reference to anything. Either way, I like Spider Sprig. I just don't like the thing they do that, superhero battles, they do so much damage. They're ultra... It's stupid, okay? Man of Steel came out in 2013. Get over it. Superheroes cause damage to cities because it's for the sake of the movie and for it to be epic. It's a goddamn movie. Also, good job keeping to that standard yourself, Matt. You definitely didn't hurt any civilians in the final battle of this show. Either way, just thought that fact was funny. Moving on.
Looks like the show finally remembered what its name stands for. Either way, Olivia and Yunan is a pretty good episode. Their dynamic works pretty well, and they're pretty entertaining. I can't believe I was more entertained by two secondary characters than the main cast, but hey, this is season 3 we're talking about. Either way, this episode is very important, since it introduces us to the core, the main villain of Amphibia, and the collection of all of its greatest minds put into one. And after electrocuting a child, because yay, it finds its new host in Marcy Wu, returning for like a few minutes and then gets possessed. Okay, I'll give my full opinion on, the Earth episodes in the future. I've said this, but I'm gonna have to give my full opinion on this plot later. Since I do think it's handled well, but I do think it could have been better. Either way, this episode is pretty good. Definitely recommend checking it out. Moving on. Hollywood Hop Pop.
Awesome! Cool! Terrible! Hello?
Hi, this is Mitch Harbor calling for Hoppediah Planter.
Wouldn't it make sense to name it Hop Pop Does Hollywood? Either way.
If you give a frog a cookie. The planters are depressed and Anne looks for a way to get back to Amphibia faster. She hears of this scientist and, you guessed it, it doesn't result in anything and it's just crazy. The only thing this episode gives us is the answer to the Skipman plot and the introduction to Terry, which
is one of the important people, humans in season 3 that does stuff for the first half and just serves to get people back to Amphibia. Moving on.
This is fine. It's a good idea. They need a nugget. Right, Fake Wally? Oh, who asked you?
I don't need to make another rant about how this episode, being literally Christmas themed, didn't air in December, but instead aired in November. I don't, right? I've done that for the last 2 parts. This is even stupider, though, because it actually is a Christmas episode. So why didn't it air in December? It was literally a week away. What the? Froggy Little Christmas. The mid-season finale that wasn't supposed to be a mid-season finale. Yeah, fun fact, this wasn't supposed to be the mid-season finale, but I guess they cut it due to... I don't remember it, but basically they cut it because of something. And basically, yeah, they just put the mid-season finale with the rest of Season 3B, and we got this as the mid-season finale, which is still pretty good, honestly. And honestly, I think it works better as a mid-season finale. Either way, Froggy Little Christmas is probably my favorite episode of Season 3A. I know that's not a huge statement, like what were the other competitors? Turning Point and Olivia and Yunnan? I'm more surprised at the fact that it's an Earth episode. Either way, this episode does really well with the characters, how much they care about each other. I feel like it's really funny, the jokes land really well. The Rebecca Sugar song is pretty good. Not as memorable as something like Stronger Than You or, honestly, Isn't It Over from Steven Universe, but it's still a pretty solid song that I can tolerate. Either way, this episode does another thing, and that is solidify that Andreas is the most relatable and casual villain of modern cartoon history. Honestly, we've been seeing a lot of serious and, oh, how dark, how serious, how intimidating villains in cartoons, and they're cool, but honestly, they kinda lack charisma. I think Andreas does this really well, and I think that's the reason people like him more than Belos, and, well, I guess many other reasons, and that the fact that he's actually well written, but that's a different story. We're not talking about that today. Either way, yeah, Froggy Little Christmas is great. Amazing. Honestly, what a great send-off to a pretty weird season, and yeah. I think it's time we talk about Season 3A as a whole, and how it's different from previous Amphibia, and why a lot of people weren't liking it as much, and why I didn't enjoy it as much. I'm going to be honest, I had this season at a higher regard before I watched it again than after I watched it. I remember it a lot better, but yeah, there's no denying it. After watching all of the seasons continuously, well, semi-continuously, I do believe Season 3 is the weakest one. I have worse memories of Season 3B, honestly, but there's no denying it. Up until now, this has been the worst portion of Amphibia yet. And I think it's the themes. You know, Amphibia is known for its wacky, dark, and kind of crazy adventures and humor. And putting them into an Earth setting kinda makes them lose a bit of that wackiness. The episodes are kinda simple. And honestly, not really that interesting. Like, some of them you need to watch to understand the future, but some of them, mostly the first 3 or 2 episodes, and by that I don't mean like the segments, I mean like the episodes themselves, aren't really necessary. If you look at Season 3A, Hop Till You Drop, Typhoid, Adventures in Cat Sitting, Temple Frogs, excluding the ending scene. Actually, no, even the ending scene isn't really that valuable. And even Sprig's Birthday, while important, are completely irrelevant. They don't work to do a greater purpose. Meanwhile, the filler episodes in Season 2 usually had some meaning, at least the early ones, you know? They were in a journey to Newtopia. They needed to stop for food, gas, among other things. And that made it feel more natural and how we was getting close to an objective. With Season 3A, it feels like we're waiting. We're waiting to get more information. We're waiting to meet the right people. And honestly, it kind of feels like a chore. How I would have done Season 3A would have been the first half of the episodes be Amphibia base, and the other half be, well, Earth-based. Duh. Why did I blank out on that? It's obvious. So basically, on the first half, we would follow Anne in her adventures on Earth, and we would follow Sasha in the second segment with her building a rebellion in Amphibia. Actually, I thought that's what they were going to do, just that skipping a few episodes. Because the episodes are already mentioned could be completely skippable. The episodes that I didn't mention usually just introduce characters that kind of don't do small things. Let's leave it at that. They do small things. For example, Fricks and Frobel. The robot girls actually help. And Terminator, we get rid of the Frobobot. Mr. X introduces Mr. X, which is a key villain at the next episode. Temple Frog's end scene is kind of important, but then again, not really. Fight of the Museum introduces Dr. Jan. What else? Most of the later episodes introduce pretty important characters and pretty important events. Spider Sprig introduces Molly Joe, and Hollywood Hop-Up introduces Humphrey. You might think these characters aren't important, but due to the next episode, trust me, they will be, even if for a brief moment. So yeah, that's how I would have done Season 3A. Just one half be Anne and the Planters, the other half be Sasha and Wartwood. That, I think, would have been a lot more interesting and a lot more meaningful to the audience. Generally because of events that happened in Season 3B, but yeah, no. How would I qualify Season 3A? And okay, I'm not gonna lie, the ending points of the series definitely looked up. Like Sprig's Birthday, Spider Sprig, Olivia and Unam, Hop Up in Hollywood, If You Gig a Frog a Cookie, and Frog a Little Christmas, all great episodes. I personally like them a lot. But that early part, man, it is hard to get through this early part. Seriously, Hop Till You Drop is completely unnecessary. Same with Typhoid. Like, they are just wacky, weird stuff, and I feel like they could have been replaced for something else. Either way, that's just my opinion. Maybe you love Season 3, maybe you think it's terrible, maybe you like my idea of half and half, maybe you don't like my idea of half and half. Either way, it's time to move on to the ending of the series. Its final batch of episodes. Season 3B. Let's go. Wow, we're starting Season 3B with, something. The episode itself is fine. I actually find it really enjoyable, but, I have a lot of nitpicks. That just kind of cluster at the end of the episode. Start with the first one. How the fuck was Anne able to beat a bunch of trained guards with a plastic lightsaber? I don't buy raw strength here because they're using metal bars. Electrically charged metal bars that would probably, 1, melt the plastic, or 2, straight up break it. They're metal fucking bars. 2, why doesn't she do that with the scientist? You literally defeated a bunch of trained guards with a plastic stick, but suddenly you need Frobo's help to defeat a random scientist. What the hell? How does that make sense? Second of all, I know this is a Disney show and they can't have the military have guns, but come on. That's like 101. At least have her sneak around. She did it to save the Planters. Why not did it to evade the guards as well? Just have the guard be touched by her story and let her go. Because that makes more sense than a child beating up trained guards with a plastic stick on sale. My second nitpick, which is minor, is that I don't buy Anne controlling powers completely. Like, come on, how many times has she used them? True colors, the new normal, what else? Oh yeah, and Exterminator. I guess that works out, kinda, but still, I don't think she should have really been able to perfectly control them now. And I say that because she's able to cut a small avocado with her powers, and come on, that's basically perfect control. And yeah, I don't buy it, like, not at this point. Either way, what else? Oh yeah, in the portal, we see a green and lush area in Amphibia. And in theory, that's where they end up, but no, they end up in an ashland. I know that's a really big nitpick, but that's kinda bugs me out a bit. But overall, the episode is okay. I just don't buy the scene where Anne pretends to be Darth Vader, and the security guards decide to play along. It's just kinda stupid. It doesn't make sense. But overall, the episode is okay. It's just basically that. We return to Amphibia, and a bunch of the secondary characters return to help us, which I'm not surprised if most people forgot about them when watching this, but whatever. Moving on. I'm conflicted on this episode. Commander Anne is the first episode back in Amphibia, and I think it clearly states how the Amphibia episodes are kinda worse than the Earth ones, but you know, we're not there yet. And Commander Anne stands out because I am extremely conflicted on it. On the one hand, it's really funny. It's cool to see all the war with civilians in resistance mode, and of course, to see Logo finally paying off that bullshit. Either way, the reason I'm conflicted on this episode is Anne's character. Anne, as I've said already, has no reason to trust Sasha, no reason to forgive her so fast, and absolutely no reason to believe she is a good person. The last she got of her was her fighting alongside her for survival. And that was kind of a situational thing because Amphibia's king was gonna kill them both. And the previous time, she literally took over Amphibia, betrayed her a second time, and didn't even really say sorry. Honestly, Anne's character is kind of a big inconsistent in this season. Again, with the whole lying to her parents, and, you know, this Sasha bit, it definitely makes me feel like they don't remember after the Reigns arc and how it extended a long period of time. But, yeah. This episode is funny. Again, I really do enjoy it, but damn. Honestly, it's a big wasted potential, and honestly a big inconsistency in Anne's character. She should have resented Sasha. She should have not trusted her. It's the reality of the situation. And honestly, when she kinda suspects that she shouldn't trust her, it's kind of forced and out of nowhere. Either way, I do think Sasha acts rather uncharacteristically stupidly. Like, really? Just because Anne says you should build a bridge doesn't mean you shouldn't use the grappling hook. I'm sure she would appreciate the grappling hook if you had it. There's a frame in this episode which perfectly describes my enjoyment of it. We have the story and character arcs, and, well, the entertainment factor and the humor, honestly. Though it does feel good to be back in Amphibia, I feel like we go over the war thing really quickly. Like, I feel like they should have taken out the entire segment explaining the situation to Anne and the planters, and, you know, kinda
making Anne understand that even though she resents Sasha, she needs to work with her. So yeah. Also, where the hell did Sasha get the information that Marcy is still alive? No, really. Olivia and you and Anne, in theory, are being mind-controlled. Where the hell did she get this information from? Hacked robots? There's no mechanic in war that I'm aware of. Besides Polly, but she wasn't here until recently. So what the fuck? Commander Anne is a fun episode, but honestly, with the character inconsistencies and with the wasted potential, it ain't looking good for the Amphibia Resistance episodes. And this was supposed to be the light at the end of the tunnel of the Earth episodes. But honestly, I'll take any of the Earth episodes over this. No, seriously. I'll take tame but funny adventures over character inconsistent and destroying funny adventures, because they're still pretty funny. Either way, moving on. They put Sprig and Sasha on an episode, working together on a mission, and they barely interact. Right off the bat, we have a terrible start to this episode, because I was really excited about it when I heard the synopsis. Like, really excited. I think it's no secret that the one episode I expected most in Amphibia is when Sasha and Sprig finally become friends. After all their bickering and hatred for each other, they finally understand that Sasha's changed and that they're both Anne's friends and they're cool with it. That episode never came, and we skipped that entire cool arc that could have happened. So right off the bat, this episode ain't have a solid start. But it is really funny. It has the iconic pinata moment. Sasha's dialogues are all really funny. They're all pretty great. But god damn it, this episode falls apart with Sprig and Ivy, because god damn it, why are they so fucking in love with each other? I can't say horny because, you know, they're children, but still, why are they so fucking in love with each other? I know they've been separated for a while, but even when Sprig was in Newtopia, which in theory was like for a month or so, they weren't like this. They weren't. So why are they so fucking crazy for each other? It's really out of character. Like, seriously? We sacrificed a Sasha and Sprig hatred episode for this. Again, though, it is really funny. I love all of Sasha's dialogues. Sasha's just a great character overall. I wish we got to see more of her. I know we get a lot of her, but god, I wish it would have been more. Either way, yeah, again, funny, but kind of a wasted potential. This may be, I'm not going to say least favorite episode of the entire show, because it is pretty funny, but just on that wasted potential of a Sasha and Sprig episode, it just kind of, it gets down there, okay? It gets down there.
Can we have a piñata party?
Don't see why not.
I'm starting to see a pattern with these episodes, and that is that they are 1, filler, 2, make inconsistencies, and 3, funny. Because generally, all 3 of these episodes are pretty funny, but their story decisions make me question who was writing this show. Seriously. Honestly, it's kind of weird. Like, the filler in Season 2 has nothing to do with the filler in Season 3. Literally. I could attribute the early Season 3 episodes for being on Earth, and that's why they were kind of plain. But this is just kind of weird. It's just kind of stupid. Why does Sasha's Angels focus solely on Toadie? Toadie is a secondary character that shouldn't be getting an episode at the end of your series. We should be going full character in the main cast. Again, I didn't mind him being used in Battle of the Bands. I would have preferred for it to be Sprig, but still, it's kind of unnecessary. Actually, this entire episode is kind of unnecessary. Like, what was the purpose of it? Literally, what did it give us? That Barry is dead? Sucks because he sounded like Radical Soda, and I like Radical Soda. Like, literally, what important this episode gave it was straight up filler. It didn't build any bonds. It didn't develop any characters because Todia doesn't show up that much further out. Actually, next episode is Ulm City, and oh boy, we're gonna have a day trip with Ulm City. Again, the jokes land pretty well, but god damn are the plots flimsy. Also, remember that concept that I said that one half of the episodes in Season 3A would be Earth and the other Amphibia? Well, I feel that would have benefited Sasha's line if knowing these frogs can sing, they've been through a lot together, because we don't see that. We don't know how much deeply she cares about these frogs or how far these bonds go because we haven't seen those adventures. Maybe there'll be a comic about it, but it ain't out yet, and honestly, I don't think it should be a comic. I'm of those people who believe that you shouldn't have to go to outside sources to understand a show, let alone one as complex story as Amphibia. So yeah, honestly, this episode is straight up filler, and honestly, it's only really funny. Honestly. Moving on. Where do I start with Town Road? Okay, so suddenly we remember that Sprig and Polly have met Ohms. Why didn't they mention them when they found out the message in the vase? I don't know. Let's leave that up to the plot. 2. If all the Ohms are just under Quarler's Pass, how has nobody seen them? Like, Quarler, I don't know how crowded Quarler's Pass usually is, but still, how has nobody seen them in over 5,000 years? That doesn't make sense. 2, the Ohms are idiots. All of them. How the fuck do you not realize that there's a war over you and you're just gonna sit there and do nothing? How? Second of all, Sasha is unnecessarily empathetic towards Lysol and Engwood. Supposedly they were expelled because they let something like thermites into the city and it almost destroyed it. And they were exiled for it. No shit, you almost destroyed a city. And Sasha somehow sees this as like, oh, it's one mistake. They also tried to eat Sprig and Polly and ate several innocent people before that. So I don't see the one mistake, but sure, let's go with that. Sasha, just because you were forgiven for doing awful things such as attempted murder and taking over the world and betraying Anne twice, doesn't mean those actions were all the better for it. You did terrible things. Destroying a city is nothing to scoff at. It is a punishment. If you rob a place and unintentionally kill a person, you still go to prison. Even if you don't realize it. Okay, yeah, this episode is terrible. I was considering doing the Ulm episodes in one segment because they're just kind of the same. But screw that. Honestly, there was a lot of this episode to talk about, so yeah. Genuinely terrible. Not necessary at all. And you may say, oh, but Mother Ulm. We'll get to that. Mother of Ulms. Absolutely fucking pointless. What was the meaning of this episode? To make Hop Pop not feel that old again? No, seriously, what was the point? The only new information we got out of this episode is on Twitter. I'm not kidding. The only new information we got because of this episode is on Twitter. For Matt Brawley, pointed out that one fan figured out the mural from all the way back in Season 1. That the giant frog represented the corruption in Amphibia. society or something like that. To be fair, that's pretty cool. And honestly, I think it's pretty solid that we had to figure that one out, but it's cool. That's the only thing. Also, this episode is incredibly unfunny. I laughed 2 times. The ending joke with Sasha and Sprig swimming around in the brain. I didn't laugh once in the previous episode, forgot to mention that. Really unfunny. But I think that's because most of this episode is gross out humor. I feel seen Sasha. If I couldn't relate to her before, I could definitely relate to her now, because god damn it. What's with the gross humor? It's pointless. You know, with Amphibia's high record on pretty funny things, I didn't expect them to go with gross out humor, especially for one of those supposedly most important episodes. Thank God this wasn't a 22-minuter, because if it was, I'd be pissed. Also, the prophecy we get told was a decipherable prophecy during season 2 in, well, the book Andrea showed us. So yeah, for longtime fans of the series, it was completely useless, because they would have deciphered it in season 2 through the internet probably, or through theory videos. So yeah, this episode was pointless. I honestly feel like the Mother of Olms and the Olm race in general was wasted potential, but honestly, looking back, I probably wouldn't have included them at all, or make them be extinct, one of the two. Either way, I think we're finally done with all the stupid episodes. Oh wait, we still have Dratonio to do, don't we? Let's move on. Grimes' pupil. First off, I would like to say that this episode is actually really funny and really fun if you're not an analyst and diehard Amphibia fan, if you're me, or just a casual fan. So yeah. What the fuck happened to this episode? Okay, first off, the title is Madly Deceiving. Grimes' pupil. For those the uninitiated, Grime is missing an eye. You would think we would have some sort of backstory to why he misses his eye, but no. Not here. Maybe in a future comic, but who knows? Either way, I don't know why Sprig and Grime hate each other. To be fair, they haven't interacted with each other since True Colors, but before that, they were pretty cool with each other. Just look at them being friends at the dinner. And honestly, I think it's kind of bullshit that Sprig beat Grime. I don't even know what the fuck happened there. Either way, yeah, still, this episode is pretty funny, again, but it's not served from plot holes when it's like, oh my god, frogs and toads working together? Oh my god, this can't be. You had dinner with Grime. Actually, he was very casual about it as well. What the fuck is wrong with you? And also, Sprig, you say that Grime did all these things to you. You had dinner with him and mentioned none of this. All your hate was directed towards Sasha, and yes, I'm still pissed we didn't get a Sasha and Sprig episode, but we got a Sprig and Grime episode, which admittedly is still very funny, but I wanted a Sasha and Sprig episode, god damn, and it would have been cooler. Still, this episode is pretty funny. Yeah, it kinda hurts it in retrospect, but it's funny. Either way, moving on. The Root of Evil is pretty fun. Gary's a fun character to see again, especially when he was hinted at the end of Season 1. But yeah, it's fun, it's funny. I do find it a bit forced that Hop Up suddenly wants to help people just because they share a common interest. But whatever. Moving on. The Corn the King is actually pretty good. Andreas' past is actually quite tragic, and, you know, it makes sense why he wouldn't understand why Leaf betrayed them. Like, she doesn't explain anything. She just runs. Probably because if she stops to explain, she'd had a bunch of robots on her, which, you know, makes sense. Either way, there are a lot of things that are funny to me, and unnecessarily so. You know how the Newts are constantly yapping about, oh, the gems are our birthright? And, well, you know, after the end of the series, we know the gems were just a little experiment.
Yeah, kinda funny when you think about it. Also, a kinda dark turn of events is that Andreas indirectly caused his best friend's death. No, literally, think about it. Andreas sent Beryl and all the toads to watch over the frog towns so they don't put a escapade like this one before. And Beryl died defending the frog town. So, yep. Andreas indirectly caused his best friend's death. What a surprise. Either way, another thing we can confirm here is that Leaf is indeed a planter ancestor, and that she was indeed friends with Andreas and Beryl. And yep, she even invented the planter dance with the Mossman. Pretty cool, huh? Either way, in the future we're getting a lot of core stuff, and how it's inherited a bunch of Marcy's quirks, and how it's eating random cupcakes, and yeah, apparently it just optimized its own head somehow, I don't know. Either way, looks like they're finally getting ready to invade Earth. So yeah, hopefully the series picks up by then. Hopefully. This episode is actually pretty good. And really funny. Tritonia is nice to see again, but the complaint I have is that suddenly Anne is using the sword that he gave her randomly. Because fun fact, she's been using the reunion sword for the last few episodes. And randomly now she starts using the blue one. Oh, god damn it. Either way, the one complaint I have with this episode is that the ending scene is really out of place. Like, wouldn't this fit better at the end of The Corin the King? Instead of an episode surrounding Tritonio? Feel like it would have been more on theme with that episode. Even as an opener, it would have worked better. But, yeah, no. This episode is still pretty good, and if I'm not mistaken, the next one is either one of two. The return of Domino, or Three Armies. Because we're in the final stretch of the series. There's like 4 episodes left. Ooh, let's go. Look, Fight or Flight is really funny. I genuinely like what the cast did. Everybody had their funny moment to shine. Grimes' moment, fucking amazing. God-bustingly hilarious. But Anne is so stupid in this episode. It is dumb, literally. She believes wholeheartedly that Domino 2 will remember her despite the last time they met, that she was going to eat her. No doubt about it. The only reason she went behind her was because she had the mouse, and apparently that's priority. And it's doubly as stupid that she actually remembers Anne and actually considers her owner, because it's stupid. She was about to eat her. Either way, yeah, it's pretty stupid. Again, the rest of the cast is really funny. I especially like Speedy Joe and Grime. Sasha's also pretty funny. But honestly, the only takeaway of this episode other than that is that Speedy Joe is out here running like fucking Naruto. Either way, we're in the final batch of episodes. I'm gonna say that now. We only have 4 episodes remaining. The 3 armies, the beginning of the end, all in, and the hardest thing. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to say a lot of them, especially those last 3. Either way, let's get this over with. Actually, before that, I forgot to mention something. So, I don't remember when these were revealed. I think it was between Marcy at the gates and or something like that. I don't know. But basically, we got Sasha and Marcy's and a few other characters' beta designs. Sasha's is mainly different armors and different styles of hair. There's one with a serpent-like sword. There's one with a gauntlet. There's one with a skull in her shoulder. There's one with a mask on her belt. There's a lot of different ones. It's basically different armors and hairstyles. We also got Marcy, and oh boy, Marcy got a lot of beta designs. If I were to analyze each and every one of them, we'd be here for days on end. There was one witch-like one. There was one moth cape one. There was a more, I don't know how to say, but one with glasses. And yeah, there were a lot of different designs for her. If I were to talk about them individually, there would be no end. But another thing we got designs for was Darcy. Darcy had really, really weird beta designs, I have to say. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Seriously? I mean, look at this. You have this one, which is pretty similar to the original. You have this one with, a bit exaggerated shoulder pads, if I might. And then you got the ones in the bottom, which are just like, what? How was she supposed to come back from that one, Matt? I'm assuming that's why they didn't use it, but I'm not gonna say they didn't have some interesting ideas for their designs. Some are pretty cool, but yeah, no, I think they just went apeshit with the bottom ones. Either way, now let's finally move on to the 3 armies. The 3 armies is okay. I mean, it's funny. Again, yeah, what a surprise. But, it's kinda weird having the new Toad conflict now, when everybody has seemed to be working together for a pretty long time. I mean, Toads and Newts have kind of been the main source of conflict. The Frogs just kind of have stood there. But that doesn't mean they haven't worked together. I mean, technically, they've worked together for the government for years. And a lot of them work together in bands. So, why is suddenly having a Newt, Toad, and Frog work together so weird? Wasn't there a gang that had a Newt, Frog, and Toad back in Season 2? But, yeah, other than that, I do feel like everybody is a bit, how to put this, overly racist towards each other. I get it's 900 plus years of conflict, but, I mean, you haven't had problems with this before. Also, where did the axolotls fall in? There are axolotls in Newtopia, and there are axolotls in Wartwood. Where do they fall in this conflict? With the majority? Also, the lizard people that are in Wartwood and the toads that are in Wartwood, where did they fall in this conflict? I mean, yeah, Toadstool was a dick in the past, but he's cool now, so why is he so reluctant to work with others? Also, they didn't even mention the mushroom zombies. I feel like they'd had a few things to say about that. But, yeah, it's kind of a weird episode to have now. Feel like it should have been in the Newtopia arc, but, yeah, no, I don't know how they would have fit that in there, honestly. Either way, we're finally going to move on to, well, the final episodes of Season 3. The beginning of the end, all in, and the hardest thing. Let's go. These people walked from Wartwood to Newtopia in less than a few hours. How long did it take for planters in it to get to Newtopia? Oh yeah, like 3 fucking weeks. No, we can just walk there in like an hour or so. Mother Olm mentioned last episode, which I think I didn't mention her last episode because she came so out of nowhere. But whatever. She mentioned Andrews invading Amphibia tonight. When the armies arrive, it's still daytime. What the fuck? How? Also, Sasha, you fucking hypocrite. I get her, like, doubting if to keep being friends with Marcy, because, you know, but telling Anne that she abused her trust and that she can't be trusted is a massive hypocrisy. If anything, Anne should be the one saying that, not Sasha. 2, Anne says forgiveness takes time. Oh yeah, that definitely applies to Sasha way, bro, you fucking bimbo. Can I say that? Either way. What else? What else is a plot hole? Oh yeah. How has the Corps not fucking considered the fact killing Anne is a liability? One, Andrea said she has a connection to the stone, aka not the stone's power directly. She has a small portion of it left that lets her absorb the rest of it. She doesn't have the power in and of itself, just a connection. You've been able to use the portal perfectly with Anne still having that percentage. Even if you kill her and that percentage is gone, it should hypothetically still work. I know this is just kind of a stupid not to kill Anne. Also, how long does it take to produce those collars? Because they could have just easily just had them collared up instantly. Also, another thing is, how does Newtopia Castle function if Darcy has the music box in her hands? I thought that didn't work unless it was in that pedestal, which is highly unprotected. No wonder they put that hologram there. But still. To be fair, I really like the battle in this episode. The war is really fun. It's eye candy. God, but still, this episode has a lot of problems, man. A lot of them. Like, man. Either way, yeah, let's move on to All In. All In. Okay, yeah, I kind of forgot to mention this and didn't know where to put it. But eventually, in the middle of the series run, the Amphibia pilot was released. It's kind of weird, you know. Some pilots get released years after their series have concluded, and others get released in the middle of the series airing. It's weird. Either way, I think the pilot is pretty solid. Quite interesting in what Amphibia was going to be. Originally, Sprig was going to be named Twig or Weed or something like that. Hop-Up was a lot more mysterious. Polly didn't exist. Grime was a lot more menacing. We got No Place I'd Rather Be in the background, which, to be fair, it does kind of feel in tone with the series. Sasha and Marcy were doodle characters. Anne had a diary, which she still has in the show, but it's kind of different. And yeah, Sprig's voice was different, but then again, Sprig was entirely different. Yeah, the pilot is quite interesting to look back on, to see the original ideas of Amphibiland. Yeah, I feel like that was a good change, honestly. Also, a lot of the frogs' designs changed. Hop-Up looks a lot more rustic, like a character straight out of Invader Zim or Randy Cunningham. But, yeah. I just wanted to mention the pilot, because if not, this Amphibia retrospective wouldn't be complete. But you did mention the theme song takeovers, or the shorts. I'm not reviewing every individual short. The theme song takeovers are public, and honestly, they're just songs. They give you a bit of extra history, and that's about it. Okay, now let's actually talk about All In. All In. You know, for being a 47-minuter, I really don't have much to say about this episode. Don't get me wrong, it's funny, fun, and pretty good, but it's just a lot of battles, and more battles, and battles, and yeah. There are some character moments, and I think most of the character arcs here are done really well. I do think the Planters one is a bit forced. I mean, really, Andreas had specifically those herons under his control. Really? Those specific ones? And second of all, no, he didn't send them to attack the valley because he had no motive to attack the valley until recently. He didn't know Leaf was even there until this episode, so yeah, no. The whole thing that Andreas sent the herons to attack the valley is stupid. But the other thing is, Anne has this character arc of who I am in this episode. And I know this is basically a mini movie, but that doesn't mean you should introduce character arcs for your main character in it, especially when it's your second to last episode. Don't get me wrong, I like it, but I feel like it would have been a lot better if this was in the beginning of the series.
Like, if we would have gotten this scene in the beginning of the first episode, it would have been a lot better of a character moment. Plus, Anne would have been like us and basically forgotten about the Who I Am poem. So yeah, I'm not saying her arc didn't have to do with identity before. I'm saying it would have been better if the first scene was in earlier episodes. Either way, Andrew's arc is done pretty good. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. His whole backstory and reveal and, you know, guilt finally comes to him. It's pretty damn well done. I do have some gripes with this episode. First of all, how the fuck does Sasha just walk off a slice to the back? She literally is walking it off like it's nothing. I don't recommend getting your back sliced. It won't end up like her just because Matt Brawl decided to give her the Toon Force. Either way, I do have to say, the battle between Andreas and Anne was very well animated. I don't get why they used K-pop. There were better options. But either way, yeah, it was still pretty good. But yeah, no. Well, they defeated Andreas, and Darcy's gone, so there's definitely no reason to have any more fighting. There's definitely not another episode after this. Great. Okay, so let's start with the staple summary of the last episode of the season. Okay, so, 3, 2, 1, go. 1, the moon is falling. 2, Andreas reveals that the moon is kind of like a pet peeve project of the core, where it kind of just has a bunch of random experiments that it made over the years. So, yeah. Mother Olm appears and says, hey, we need to use the gems to stop it. Everybody goes except Anne, and Mother Olm tells her, hey, we have a spell that can basically one-shot this, but you could die in the process. So she's like, okay, how do I use it? And well, basically Mother Olm said, oh, you have to ask them. Anne runs back to the Calamity Box room and finds Valeriana, who helps them use the power of the Calamity Gems. They have some super forms. Fucking awesome designs, by the way. I love them. And they fly up to the moon. Huh, that feels like a reference. Either way, they fly up to the moon and they fight all of the small fry and the moon itself with No Big Deal remix on the background. I'm going to once again humiliate whoever does the song choices for this, but this is because I have the ability to not get copyright struck, so I understand.
Get ready for the next battle. Welcome to the stage of history. Being trapped by a starving beast, looking for his daily feed. The predator on the verge of death, close to his best friend. Being trapped by a starving beast, looking for his daily feed. The predator on the verge of death, getting close to his best friend. Rules of nature! And they run when the sun comes up, with their lives on the line.
Okay, while this is happening, Andrea sends the robots to help Anne, Marcy, and Sasha, and finally destroys his crown, which was the core, and
does a parallelism to Anne from season 1 really cool. Either way, even with Andrews' help, they can't stop the moon because it has fucking thrusters, because the moon is smart. And, yeah, well, Marcy and Sashi start to run out of power. The robots start to explode, so Anne decides, okay, time to use the ultimate spell. She sends them back to Earth and uses all the power of the Calamity and absorbs it. And right when she's doing that, Sprick shows up and her that she changed her life and to not leave him. Anne says that he changed her life too, and that she loves him too, but, still gotta sacrifice myself for the good of the world. I'm not gonna let you die, man. And basically shoots the moon through with a giant energy blast. Anne's corpse is white. Why didn't he get canceled for that, huh? Yeah, basically she dies, and her final words being that she never got to see the movie that the sequel to the movie that they watched in Civil War. That's a really weird last word choice, but okay. But yeah, no. Anne dies. The series ends. Unless, because fake out deaths are definitely not a common criticism in animation, Anne gets revived. Somewhat. First, she enters this space, which seems to be the base of operations of the Three Stones deity, the Guardian. I'm just gonna call her God. Basically, she explains that she made a clone, and right before she died, and inserted all the memories into her. That definitely didn't throw the fandom into chaos and doesn't provoke a lot of interstitial drama, but okay. Basically, the Guardian provides, well, a job offer for Anne to basically be the next God, because she's the only one who has used the stones for good. Anne rejects it, saying that she is inexperienced, but that she might consider in the future, if she has a future. So the Guardian revives her and sends her back to Amphibia with 3 stones. Send them back home, but only a one-way ticket. This next scene is honestly one of the most emotional scenes in the show. Honestly, it's beautiful. The goodbyes, the characters, the dialogue, everything, it's perfect. And it honestly reminded me of why I love this show, why I love these characters. Season 3 might have been the most bumpy road ever, but it never made me outright despise these characters. It never made me forget the good moments they have in previous seasons. It's honestly pretty amazing. And Sprig and Anne's final goodbye is pretty cool. We finish the scene with a look at Amphibia and how it looks currently until it fades, and we look into the future. To me, the Amphibia epilogue is one of the best scenes in the entire show. Honestly, it shows how the characters, despite being far apart, they were still able to find happiness, and most of them is due to their memories and experiences together. To me, Amphibia's main message is that even if you have someone important go away from you, the memories and experiences you have with them will always be with you. I love Amphibia as a show. It's my favorite show of all time. That is not a joke. No live action or no other cartoon comes close to the level I love Amphibia. Yes, I definitely loved it a lot more before. I definitely had it at a bit of a higher standard before. I don't believe Amphibia's perfect. At least not after season 3. But I still think it's a great show. Worth the watch, and definitely at some point will make you feel for the characters. Amphibia is a show that has a perfect ending, and not a lot of shows can achieve that. So I'm glad the crew were able to stick the landing and not, do some portal shit at the end. Or did they? Marcy's Journal. I have lightly mentioned this book over the retrospective, and yeah, I think the book is pretty good.
For an Amphibia fan, it's honestly really interesting to see what Marcy was up to in Newtopia while in Season 1, and other little lore tidbits that, the show never got to explore. It's honestly pretty fun and really interesting. I do have some pet peeves with it. The fact that Marcy writes basically everything down in every moment. Literally, she's saving Spring in True Color. She's writing stuff down. Like, what the hell? Either way, yeah, it does make it pretty annoying, and it does make her seem a little dumb, but whatever. My real pet peeve comes with the cherry on top the book left us with. So spoilers, because this book came out end of it last year. So at the end of the book, Mr. X mentions that they finally managed to open a portal to Amphibia, or at least it's implied. I'm not a big fan of this personally. I'm a fan of bittersweet endings, and Amphibia nails that. Literally nails the bittersweet ending. That's why I loved it, and that's why it's perfect, and that's why a lot of people loved it. And I think it's kind of stupid that they literally just retconned this. Really? Really? You had the perfect ending, but you couldn't help yourself, could ya? There was already room for a spin-off, like a Spring spin-off with the islands of the new continent that he mentioned in the last episode. But man, you didn't have to ruin the entire ending of the show with a hint for fans. Man. Either way, I do think the book is still really good. I don't think it completely ruins the ending, though it does kind of shatter the whole message and tone. But I still think it's a great send-off gift to Amphibia, and that any fan should pick it up. But yeah, another thing I want to discuss is the future of Amphibia, because yes, we still have Amphibia coming. It looks like there are going to be more books, maybe comics, but that's kind of side stuff. I don't think they'll do anything big. Maybe something about the past of Amphibia, but yeah. I will read those, and I will cover those on this channel, spoilers. But yeah. Another thing I want to mention is Matt Brawley's concept of the Amphibia movie. Not a big fan of it. Okay, so the concept of the Amphibia movie was time travel to the past because Beryl and Leaf didn't get enough time to shine. But honestly, between that and the fact that the girls returned to Amphibia, I'm kinda not a big fan of it. I really like the ending the show had. I don't need it to have a time travel movie with plot holes and such, because time travel is a plot hole in and of itself. But yeah, again, if you want to flesh out Leaf and Beryl, just do it in a book. They're more coming, so maybe they'll do it in there, just hopefully without a time travel story. But either way, let's discuss the future of this channel. Okay, so I've been calling myself Part-Time Theories for, 2020? Something like that? It's kind of been a chaotic channel and a very experimental one at that, but yeah. What I'm going to do next is basically going to do some random videos about my opinion on modern stuff. Shows, movies, basically that type of stuff. It's not going to be very edited. They're going to be relatively short, I hope. But, yeah, it's basically going to be it. That's why I'm making the executive decision to change this channel's name from Part-Time Theories to Part-Time Opinions. Because that's basically going to be it. I'm just going to express my opinion on stuff while you see an image of the show I'm talking about. And me. But yeah, other than that, I also have a skit channel, as you saw in the beginning of the video. And another thing I'm going to do is more content like this, but on a separate channel. I'm going to be speaking Spanish, so yeah, if you don't get it, you're probably not going to get it at all, so yeah. I'm basically going to be talking about more videos like this, but with video games, movie sagas, and other shows, of course. I would like to make video games because I've been stuck with Amphibia for like a good while, so yeah. The first one is going to be of a game. Most of the footage is already recorded, and so yeah, part 1 should be up before summer ends. So yeah, keep an eye out whenever I announce it. Either way, we've finally come to the end of this retrospective. And yeah, it's been a journey, honestly. I definitely think I've progressed with my commentary, editing, and video making skills in general. But I think this retrospective is pretty decent. There have been parts where I definitely would have upgraded it. And, well, yeah. I just wanted to say that thank you all for supporting me. You're 20 people, but that's more than I could ever ask for. Thank you all for watching, for subscribing to this channel, and thank you for supporting this retrospective. Thank you, Matt Brawley, for making Amphibia. Thank you, Amphibia, for existing, for all your good writing, good characters, and all the good stuff you ever gave this earth. Thank you. And yeah, that's about it. Goodbye, and until we meet again.